All right, good evening. Thank you for coming out for tonight's October 14, 2025 study session for the Sumner County School Board. Before we begin, I'm going to stand for a moment of silence, followed by a pledge to our flag. Ms. Barnes?
Yes, if we could, as we take this moment of silence, can we do this in honor of Sophia Ballinger and remember her family?
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I call to order the October 14, 2025 study session for the Sumner County School Board. First item on the agenda is playground update. Dr. Langford.
One second. All right, so last meeting, we talked about the committee and we added some parents. And so one of the things that the committee did is add an additional parent. So we have 4 now, Amy Olson, Aaron Kortner, Ashley McClure, and then Andy Gilly from the community. It's really proud of the community, the work that Lisa and Ms. Julie Daniel are leading. So they've had one meeting, they've got another meeting coming up October 22nd. We've had one parent meeting. I'd like to get a schedule out, but I want to schedule it with enough time now that we're on the other side of fall break to give parents time to coordinate, figure out technology and stuff like that. Because I think one of the things that came out of the last parent meeting was being able to provide an access for parents who can't come because of childcare situations. So being able to do both, I think that's going to work out well because I think the team did, and Lisa, feel free to jump in anytime. The team did a really good job of saying there's a need for a staged plan, need for community meetings in person and virtual. They wanted to look at Benny Mills Elementary as a start to see what it would cost, to get estimates from 2 companies for what it would cost to make that playground fully accessible. They're going to pull the cost of the White House Intermediate Playground. That's our newest playground and the most accessible playground. Consider poured sidewalks to tracks and basketball courts. Chris Harrison is going to look at the contractors for the poured sidewalks to tracks and basketball courts, and then the need to identify schools with obstacles for prioritization. Some aspects of the plan will take longer, but certain things like where we have sidewalks that are 5 or 6 feet away from meeting the playground. I think there's some simple things we can do that aren't even that expensive that increase access, and we should. There's no need to work until a plan is done to do some things that are just really simple to do to increase accessibility for kids. And so beginning to identify those and getting those rolling, determining need to identify, and then providing a preliminary report to the board on the November 4th study session. So have a little bit more. I just didn't want it to, I know several of you mentioned last time, keeping our momentum going about how the money's going to be spent, what'll be prioritized, things like that. And then, of course, the next committee meeting will be on October 22nd. Lisa, did I miss anything?
Any questions? I'm sorry. Mr. Lancaster.
Yeah, so I guess from a timeline standpoint, I know we're having these meetings and everything. What's the goal for at least the first round of actual spending or actually putting some work?
Yeah, I think the idea of seeing and Lisa jump in here, my understanding is that trying to understand what it would cost, if we get an idea what it would cost at Benny Mills, then that lets us know how far that $900,000 will go. Is it, at that point, I think after the November 4th study session, the board will have to give some guidance to the committee. Do we want to knock out one? And, I would say this that we've learned from athletic facilities is each time we do something, we learn a lot for the next time. So do we want to do one and then step back and get lessons and then stage out the plan, or do we want to try so some of that will depend on what the cost is, because if it's that plus as much as we can, I think, my understanding of the board's intent is we want that money to go as far as possible to improve things as far as possible. But I also know that if we try to do Mary's Magical Kingdom, 30 times, you're talking about 46 million. So what gives us the most bang in the short term? Is that one playground, or is that, to build a model then to replicate as we generate more money and, budget for it and things like that? Or so I guess my answer would be is kind of getting the legwork done to see what it would cost to give y'all some information to consider as you give us some guidance on what you'd like to see.
So you think that would be probably by November 4th is what you're thinking?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I get,
Mr. Lancaster?
so we got two things. We've got schools that maybe are close to being there or not having that many obstacles to getting there. But then we also have the issue where we have schools that maybe have more students that have the need, and so trying to match those two. Obviously, if there's a school that's like, well, we only need to do a couple $100,000 worth of things here, we're good, but we have no student with that need at that point. So
Right.
I guess I hope whenever we get something, I would like to see an overview of
What's there?
for everyone. Like I think we kind of got this previously, is how many students, are we needing for
Mhm.
this school, and then what their status is.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the school status and then the students with need in that school. So those two things.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
And it does, and I think that's our goal. We're trying to balance where the student needs are right now, where the highest needs are, and then what would create the most accessibility the fastest. And that's all different things. So I think the goal is we just want to bring back those options to you all, let you know the status of where the needs are currently, and then let you guys make some decisions about where you want us to focus. We're really just trying to focus on looking at the cost. The reason we picked Benny Bills was because it is a moderately sized playground. So we thought we would just use that size, not the school specific, but just that size to get some bids from vendors. And Chris Harrison is working on that. And so we're hoping to bring you back cost, some project potential, and also we could increase accessibility quickly to walking tracks and basketball courts, and that might be something we could do to really get a lot of bang for the buck. But that will ultimately be you guys that get to decide that.
Yeah, and I think talking to Mr. Harrison, some of the things looking to is like we had some families go and test the new surface at the playground up here, and so it's a very small sample size. But one of the things was it was hard in spots to use the wheelchair because it's still a turf type thing. It's better than mulch, but so like my question would be: is there a possibility of doing kind of mixed surfacing where you would have because you still have to account for things like fall safety, so there has to be something that breaks a child's fall without them getting hurt. The problem is the spongier that surface is, the harder it is to navigate a wheelchair. So my question is there a way to do like a track type entrance so that you can get there, so you don't have to have the same surface everywhere, so you can kind of mix and match surfaces. I think we're kind of getting into some really interesting questions that'll help, not just in Sumner County but across the state, is what are ways that we can do this to mix the surfaces and things like that so that we can maximize accessibility and usability of the playground. I would like to add too, I think that there's some questions like, it was really a fascinating conversation we had with the parents is like, and one parent just said this, why is the climber the center of every playground? It's like, well, that was the most expensive thing, but it's also not always the most widely used piece of equipment. So, I would say coming out of the parent meeting, I thought one of the things that really hit me, and I'm not saying like I'm still very much for equipment, but one of the things that I've heard, from families and from the parents that were there that day is, the thing that really brings joy to everybody's heart is seeing the interactivity of all kids being able to interact. And so my question is, like, we've invested so much in STEM and things like that. Are there also activities and things that we could run to a broader scale more quickly? Like, this is totally me spitballing and guessing, like Legos, things that require kids to work together to do stuff, like STEM type stuff and things like that. Not to replace the need for equipment, but to do some things where we could more quickly provide accessibility, and not just accessibility, but like ways to connect kids together. I really liked one of the parents suggested, at her school, they had talked about having a separate CDC playground that would be smaller, that would be easier to do the surface and everything. And she, as a CDC student, she really pushed back on that. She's like, no, we're not looking for more isolation. We're looking for more integration. And that's what I think, that's what I hear from parents, what I hear from the board and everything. So I think the thing is, how do we put those kind of things on the table so that we can maximize and do the best job, while also saying, like, hey, we did this with athletic facilities. We don't necessarily have to rebuild a 1970s style playground, right? Like, and I think one of the exciting things is there's actually like a lot of really new, exciting equipment that's different than what existed, 20 or 30 years ago. Gives the opportunity to look at some cool things for kids.
Mr. Hollis?
Obviously, this is on our radar now, and it's going to be an ongoing effort for a while. And I think what Mr. Lancaster said, it's looking for wants versus needs, and as we get more money coming in, but initially trying to make the most impact for, does this playground just need access? Do they need a different equipment or a different surface or something like that, is what I would hope we could look at as well, just to, I mean, in my mind, it's like, how can we maximize this money for as many kids as possible right out of the gate?
Yeah, that's kind of my thoughts too.
So to piggyback off that, just to make sure we're clear on funding here, what we're talking about, the stuff that you mentioned at the beginning, some of the surface, like access pathways, some of the things that we can do right now without having to go out to bid, would that fall under this money that we received? Because to me, I feel like that would just come out of the maintenance fund, because it's stuff that we're just doing without getting bids and having to do.
Yeah, I think it depends on what it is and what the scale of it is. Like,
So I'm just wondering, we don't have to take away
if it's
from
building 4 feet of sidewalk, my thing is like, let's just knock that out.
That's what but that wouldn't come out of the money that we were setting
We'll
aside
probably
for the
just cover
playground.
that up, yeah.
That's okay, cool. Thank you.
If it's 100 feet of sidewalk,
Yeah.
that's a different.
Anything else? All right, well, I appreciate you continuing to work with this group. I do think it's interesting. I think when we first started talking about the playgrounds, I mean, everything was about what pieces of equipment do we need to buy, and then what surface do we need. And I like how the conversation is starting to morph a little bit into, it's not just about buying stuff to put on the playground to look like we have stuff and to look like we're inclusive. It's more, as he just said, how do we break the isolation with these students and provide opportunities to include them more in the day-to-day activities. So I appreciate that that's the direction this is going, and I think you're right, it could open up a lot more avenues that we haven't even thought about, and really build something that's special for our kids for a long time. So thank you. Yes. All right, next item on the agenda is discussion regarding the calendar committee recommendation for school year 26-27.
I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Skinner.
Dr. Yon is really going to be in charge of this presentation, but I wanted to introduce some supporters in the audience that are a big part of this work, as well as Dr. Yon. So we have Cheryl Collins over there. I'm going to tell you a little bit about them and then a fun fact so you can know them professionally and something personal. So she was employed full-time at Gallatin High School in 1993 as an ISS teacher and an attendance clerk. She received a vocation license plus a freshman cheerleader sponsor. She moved to the central office as a student data management specialist in 1995 until 2021, and then she was promoted to lead student data management specialist until right now. She likes to play golf, attend music venues, and go on cruises. I learned cheerleading sponsor. I didn't know that one.
She also severely limited my access for 4 years to data while I was principal.
I mean, she knew what she was doing then, right? Then we have Mary Evelyn Stewart. She's been in the district for 26 years. She's been a teacher, an assistant principal, a principal, an elementary instructional coordinator, a data coordinator, and a coordinator for lottery and professional growth. When she's not at work, she likes to play with all of her donkeys. She has a bunch too. And one, Jack, was it Jack? Used to come in on her porch and sometimes maybe in her living room. Then we have Rachel Sawyer. She was a Unity site manager, a sign language interpreter, an online learning coordinator. She's been in the district for 16 years, and in her free time, she likes to fish, and that was also new learning for me. And then Dr. Yon, 22 years in Sumner County, 14 years as a teacher, 8 years as a supervisor of professional growth, avid cruiser, so his son is 3 and just got back from his 9th cruise, 9 cruises for a 3-year-old. And he didn't put this, but I'm gonna tell you anyway, he's the biggest fan of St. Patrick's Day that I know. So this team's put in a lot of effort and thought and time, and I just want to appreciate all the work they do. Of course, it was a much bigger committee, but they're very intentional and do really good work. So, Dr. Young.
Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. And as a former government teacher, I love Constitution Day, and it is halfway to St. Patrick's Day. So just to add on to Ms. Skinner's comments there. All right. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight on behalf of the Calendar Committee, our team that Ms. Skinner introduced. Pretty much facilitates the conversation, but we don't vote on any of the recommendations. We just kind of guide the conversation and make sure that the committee understands both state policy and board policy to stay within those guardrails. So one of the, I guess I would turn this on. Here is the committee makeup for the 26-27 calendar. So what happens is 50% of the calendar committee rolls off every year, and then the other half is new, for which we go into each of these different areas that you see here on the screen in the communities to make sure that grade bands are represented, to make sure that roles are represented. So we have 50% that is familiar with the process and understands from their role on it the previous year, and then we've got fresh new blood, and then next year we will have 50% of a new group that comes in, and those that were new this year will be the more senior people. And when we look at how to select those people from the communities, and from the grade bands and from the roles, we look at where the holes are in each of these categories up here on the screen, and then reach out to the principal or supervisor for a recommendation at that building that would fit that criteria of the grade band, the community, or the role. And sometimes if it's a district office, then we would ask for the supervisor in that particular area. So we're very strategic in how we get these 32 people to make sure the representation is spread throughout our large district here. So what makes up a school calendar? According to Tennessee Code Annotated, there has to be 100, and technically there has to be 200 days. What the committee is looking at is 190 days, because 10 of those days are paid holidays on the teacher contract. So what the committee really tries to focus in on is where are we going to plug those 190 days into sometime at the end / beginning of August, and what has traditionally been in Sumner County the end date prior to Memorial Day. So oftentimes the committee will look at when Memorial Day is and work their way backwards to the beginning of the year. And depending on where the start is will determine whether or not the start of the school year starts at the end of July or the beginning of August. So when you look at this outline here, think of it as 3 different buckets. You have 5 administrative days, you have 5 professional learning days, and there are 180 student days. And when you look at the 180 student days, they accumulate 13 stockpile days, and that'll come into play for what we call instructional focus days here in a moment when I explain that. Because we're only in our second year of instructional focus days, and the committee recommended that we continue that into 26-27. So for the purpose of what the committee worked on and provided to you for your approval and our discussion tonight is how are those 5 administrative days, how are those 5 professional learning days, and how are those 180 classroom instruction days built in. So here is a list of where we're able to track from the records that we have dating back 21 years of the use of stockpile days for inclement weather. And the average, the average use from all the way back to 2004, 2005 is about 5.8 stockpile days per year. And that even includes those high numbers that have asterisks next to them in 2019 through 2022, which were the COVID years, where we used more stockpile days during those years. So you can see if you subtract 5.6 from the 13, we're still staying within by using the instructional focus days. We're still below the number of stockpile days that we would have traditionally used in a year for inclement weather. So how do we accumulate those 13 stockpile days is listed here on this slide. 30 minutes is added to every school day times 180. That gives you 13 extra school days. You can use them at the director of schools' discretion for 3 things: inclement weather, serious illness or outbreak, and a natural disaster. We had to use both of those last year for snow and for a tornado that came through. If we calendar those particular days, we have to have approval from the Tennessee Department of Education's General Counsel. Our team submits an application. They accept or reject that application based on the criteria of professional development or instructional planning. And those are defined as trainings according to the General Counsel when we reached out for them to define both of those for us. So how do we get to the instructional focus days? They are lined up in only the instruction days. So they can only come out of the 180 days. So they don't count towards any professional learning days. This is why I have those in separate buckets. And they don't count towards any administration days. They have to be part of the instruction days because that's where the stockpile days are. So you have the allocation of the instructional focus days. What is recommended, what we did last year and this year, and what is recommended for next year is that we take 5 of those instruction days, apply to the Tennessee General Counsel for approval, state how we're going to use those days under some type of professional learning or training on those particular days, and then those are subtracted off of the 180 days. That leaves 8 stockpile days left, which keeps us below the average of what we traditionally use for snow days or inclement weather days. So the committee recommended, as you have seen, that was released over the weekend by Mr. Johnson, and the focus this year was cohesive ongoing professional learning, intentionality around testing and data, and a balanced calendar for families. And that was the focus and the drive behind this year's calendar selection. And the committee, as you can see, had 2 challenges. A, Easter is early this year or next year, so that threw a kink into things where we had traditionally ended things at the quarter. And there's an election day later in August, but it's the first Thursday of the month, so that threw off the first week. So having those two handicaps in the front of the conversation, the committee felt that these were the best options that they could provide for your selection this evening, or I guess technically next week when you make the final decision. So here are the differences. I believe most of you probably already know these. So unless you have some specific questions on those, I'm not going to go over those point by point. But those are the highlights from the different selections, or excuse me, the different preferences by the committee and how they form the different calendar options that you have there. There are several differences, not necessarily, these items are not necessarily differences in all three calendars, but there is at least one difference in one of the three options that is listed here. And finally, we have on that election day note about August 6th, 18 of our 29 voting precincts in Sumner County are Sumner County schools. So we are kind of basically locked out of using August 6th because of the number of schools that are used. And I know that there has been a lot of requests to kind of have a more of a middle of the week start for the upcoming school year, and that was one of the biggest things that almost every member of the committee brought forward. But let's try to start in the middle of the week. And feedback that I personally got from across the district from principals and other educators, but the committee brought that to the forefront, and then as I mentioned earlier, the August 6th through a kink in things starting and then having a day off right after that. So these were the conversations. The committee voted on the meeting day that these were the preferences. They are then asked to go get feedback from colleagues, and at the end of that feedback time frame, it was still unanimous that these options were in that order in both the original vote the day of the committee meeting and then after the feedback from their colleagues. All right, I'm sure y'all have questions.
Can we go back to the slide that shows the differences between the three? Just
Oh, sure.
Just so it's a little bit easier, just the preferences, just so it's a little bit easier to see when we're looking at the content. All right, Ms. Brittany?
Okay, I have a lot of questions, so I may just get through a couple and then let other people talk too.
Okay.
And then could circle back to mine. First, I really want to see pictures of the donkey in the living room, so if we could circulate those, that'd be great. So, registration night. One of the things I have heard loud and clear from teachers, from nurses, from administration is that having registration night the night before school starts is just unattainable. It's not something that they can do. Could we, on preference 2 or 3, just as we consider them, can we move that registration night back a week, sometime in the previous week, so that we aren't asking like nurses to do all of their registration, get all the information from students, and then the very next day need to be doing the work that they do. So, is that an option?
Technically, according to the board policy, it would have to come at the request of Dr. Langford. So, not to put him on the spot, but I don't know where, it gives him the opportunity to present the committee, so I don't know how he feels about.
Yeah, let me just, like budgets, committees, or let me start again. Calendars are always tough because I think what you have to always remember is that the committee has put a tremendous amount of time into this to look at all the different scenarios, and there's, I know every year when you convene the new calendar committee, the new people come in with a lot of ideas about how they can do it better and differently. And then you're stuck with, we always want at least 2 weeks for Christmas. We want a week for Thanksgiving, a week for fall break, a week for spring break. We want to be done before Memorial Day. So that We also try not to start in July. We've done that before. That's not popular. If you move them the week before, then you're on top of days when teachers are there all day to do either admin or professional learning. Those are also important. I agree with you 100%. It's really problematic to try to have registration nights and then start school, because you're basically not giving the schools any time to, nurses to prepare care, schools to provide schedules. We still have a significant number of kids that show up for the first time to register at those registration nights or the first day of school. It really backloads a lot of the work, so spreading that out is a win. I would just, it would, we can absolutely, to your question, Ms. Brent, we can absolutely look at that.
Yeah.
I think that the trade-off is you're solving one problem and
Specifically for calendar 2, calendar 2 is very popular for the schedule, but is completely unpopular for the registration date, and that feels like something that we might be able to balance. To me, if you could look into that.
yeah, we could look at it. I would just tell you, like the first year I was up here in 2018, we put registration nights on top of PL days and admin days for this kind of reason. And I would say to this day, it's probably I did not do that. It was my first month as director of instruction, but it was probably the most wildly unpopular thing we've done. I think having it the 2 days before school started would be more unpopular and almost impossible to do. But yeah, we can absolutely look at
I
that.
think people would storm the building,
Yeah.
at least from the reactions that I've gotten. I think this one's a little bit harder, but I had quite a few people suggest it, so I am gonna, and you kind of addressed it a little bit, but I'm gonna bring this one up as well. There's kind of like 2 potential asks for this one. If we're looking at calendar 1, or calendar 2 with a different registration night, could we move some of the instructional focus days from later in the year, and allow us to either start on the 10th, or alternatively, switch on the Monday admin day with
For calendar 1 or 2, I'm
for
sorry.
for calendar 1.
Okay.
Switch the Monday admin date with Friday, and do the 3rd, 4th, 5th with no students on the 6th, 7th, and then full week on the 10th. Both teachers and parents for that calendar 1 appreciated not having a first full week, but really don't like that break. 2 days in, 1 day off, 1 day in. So could we flip it? I did check with the principals, a few of the principals that I talked to, a few of the teachers that I talked to regularly, and everyone had a pretty strong consensus that 3 days in, 2 day break is better than 2 days break, 1 day.
So to address again, it's that balancing act that Dr. Langford just talked about. We know that research suggests that if you don't have professional learning ongoing, that within 24 hours within 1 hour you lose 50%, 24 you lose 70, and within a week you lose 90% of the training. So that was the intentionality put behind not only the instructional focus day that happened after fall break yesterday, but the committee was very passionate that they wanted it not only added back onto the end of the fall break, but they added one to the end of spring break because of that ongoing piece. And then if you look at the strategic placement, I know it looks just like September 4th is stuck out there to have a long weekend with Labor Day, but it's one of those opportunities that, okay, now we're a month into school, and I've gotten the opportunity to learn where my students are, and I can have an instructional focus day to really dig in to look at where we can change some things after a reset weekend from their 4 days off. So that was the conversation that the committee had on that. So if you're looking at what is in the best instructional, because you're balancing 2 things here when you're voting on this, you're balancing what is the most appealing calendar or what is the most instructionally sound calendar. And that was what we charged the committee with, to think of those options, and these were the availability.
I would say you pointed out spring break. That was one that I heard very regularly from teachers, that long spring break, they are concerned that is destructive to then moving straight into a time when we have a lot of testing. So it felt like an exceptionally long break there. That was one of the days that people were suggesting moving. I know those two suggestions are up to Dr. Langford to look at. So I would just say my preference would be to look at making that change with the admin day on calendar 1, since it doesn't seem to impact instruction negatively.
I would push a little bit on that, because I think if you look at what the instructional focus day is, the reason that they're strategically planted there is that's a
It's an
day for
admin day.
teachers to was that?
It's an admin.
No, I'm talking about the other, like, not on the admin
Okay.
day, I'm talking about the other. I think we want to be careful with the instructional focus days, because they're placed for teachers to be able to disaggregate data, to look at it, to retool. Like, one of the things that we hear at scale from teachers is, not having the time to do that kind of work, to look at the data and dig in and things like that. I think, like, we can absolutely look at the admin day and, and then kind of get some feedback. I'll be honest, like, I'm always really hesitant after a committee's put a significant amount of time studying this to kind of, but I mean, we certainly have made changes. I will tell you that when we first did the week of Thanksgiving, we had a lot of concern that a week of Thanksgiving was going to affect EOCs in high school. And once we did it, everybody said this is the best thing we've ever done. We needed that break. It kind of helped everybody to refocus and then come back. So, I think anytime we do something new on the calendar, and I mean, rightfully so, we should, before we make a move like that, we should kind of weigh it out. But we can absolutely look at the admin day.
Okay. I have a couple more questions, but I'm going to go ahead and turn my light off and come back to me.
Mr. Lancaster?
Yes, sir. How many people are on the committee?
32.
32. Can you give me their preference? I know we got 3 recommendations. Like, is option 1 overwhelmingly the preferred?
Yeah. Yes, sir. It was unanimous on the rank order of, if you see under where it says recommendation 1, that is their first preference, and recommendation 2 that's the green calendar. The yellow calendar was unanimous as well for recommendation 2, and then the gray calendar was unanimous for recommendation 3.
Okay, so you don't really have but you're saying that it was unanimous that all of them preferred 1.
Correct.
Okay, that was kind of what I was trying to understand.
And not only in the initial discussion and the day of, but in the 2 weeks that we gave them to engage in feedback with peers, over half of the committee responded, and it was still unanimous that option 1 was their preference.
Right. Which is always good for us, because nobody's ever happy with the calendar, but if they tell them, hey, 32 teachers and staff did this, that was unanimous, then at least they can,
That's the first thing I tell
like
the
to pass
committee.
the blame to somebody else on this as much as possible. The other question that I have, first I would like to commend you for allowing us to take the day after Halloween off this time. That's always one that's y'all did not make us come to school that Sunday.
I didn't know how y'all would feel about not having to work on a Sunday, but
That's good. Can you explain is the 19th of March, that Friday before March, is that simply hey, there's going to be a ton of people that are just absentee that day, or is there a reason why we're taking an extra Friday before spring break?
there was, because Memorial Day moves to the end of the month, it's on May 31st, there was actually, if we hadn't had the August 6th election, we would have had a lot more flexibility to play with, but there was just an extra day in the second semester that they were allowed to decide where to put that. So that is, there's not a significant day, because Good Friday actually falls on the 26th during spring break. So they just, where in option 3, the spring break is a little earlier because they anticipated some pushback on it being so late. So a option was provided, and because it was needed to take Good Friday off, if y'all decided to go with option 3, it just kind of offered an extra day in that area. But that could be an option, Dr. Langford, that Ms. Brenning was offering, that we could pick up a student day there on March 19th.
And so we're, in this method, we have how many actual potential inclement weather days available? 8, is that right? Okay. So if we make it to the first or the second week of February, and we've used, 11 days, we potentially have the 19th to use if we had to.
Right, and there's also a new.
And we've got the 29th.
How many phone calls would you make?
Well, I mean, if it's opposed to that or,
No,
in
I'm
the
saying
summer,
if we made that a school day after people are playing trips.
Right.
But Mr. Lancaster, I didn't address your original point too. Some of the committee was concerned about what you initially said, that they might be packing up and heading out to the beach early on that day. I don't know if there's
and it's the same before fall break. I mean,
Sure.
The checkout line was long at pretty much every school. The checkout roster on Friday before fall break. It just, but anyway.
There are safety nets as well. The director of schools can request if an emergency happened outside of these for additional days, as well as virtual learning days.
The other question I have, I don't ever pay that much attention to it when we're doing this, but then it happens, then we get to it and like, why are we, so we get 2 weeks at Christmas, and we always like go back that, there's those 2 days. Why are there those 2 days? I understand having the Monday like for administrative day, but what is the thought process on those 2 days? Because usually after, it probably isn't like this in every household, but my household, after 2 weeks with my children, I'm ready for them to go back.
So similar to the point that Ms. Brenning made earlier, the teachers coming back on that, we have to have those 5 administrative days placed somewhere, and to give the principals and the teachers that reset. Sometimes at the beginning of the second semester, you have brand new teachers that, for whatever reason, are brand new. That gives them that 1 day versus coming in fresh out of a 2-week break from Christmas straight into instruction days. And the professional learning day that is present in options 1 and 2, historically, several years ago, it used to fall on Martin Luther King and the King Day, and the committee said or recommended that we actually celebrate that holiday and move the professional learning day, because it was calendared that technically teachers had to work on that day. And most of those days are flexed out, but some principals do require their teachers to come in on those particular days. So that was when it moved off, and that is identified as a holiday. We had to put that technically that 4th professional learning day somewhere, so it got put at the beginning of the semester along with that other admin day.
I would add that probably beyond just that is a lot of our families, especially with divorce households, there's a lot of custody stuff, and it gives, what we see is like with chronic absenteeism being a major thing, and it's a real thing. One of the reasons we went to the week off at Thanksgiving was we had a lot of families, especially if you went anywhere, most families were taking off that Monday, Tuesday, and our absent rates were, we see the same thing on the back end of Christmas, because you got families coming from all over the country. We're a much more mobile county now than we were 20 or 30 years ago, and so a lot of families are working through, like, we had a lot of stuff this year on fall break with the instructional focus day, because that's not technically fall break, it's an instructional focus day, but there are no kids, so
we had a lot of questions about custody and things like that. And so, it's something that we don't think about a lot. We have a significant number of our families that have to negotiate. These are the 2 weeks I go to stay with my dad or my mom, and so I think that, that's part of the thing there too. Is it gives, if you think families are flying, if you try to fly back on the 1st or 2nd, you're going to pay a substantial amount of money. So, what happens is they can't afford to do that, so they miss a day or two of school. So, just trying to manage the absenteeism also.
The only other question or comment or whatever I've got is, the biggest hurdle or thing that I hear from teachers is starting the school with enough prep time is the most important thing. They feel like last year was tough because we had a full week of school the first week, and I remember, I think I sent you an email the Friday of the first week of school and said, hey, let's don't do this again. But having time where they can actually be prepared, have their, be prepared in their classroom and stuff like that. Is there an option for that on this first option?
So when we have the full committee, we break them into subcommittees, and it's essentially grade bands. We have elementary, middle, and high, and they come up with their calendar, and then they present to the whole committee, and then they decide which one they like. The team that presented this option that was adopted as recommendation number 1, the green calendar, specifically noted that was a great opportunity after their 2 drive days, which are the district professional learning days, to come back to the school, because typically the instructional focus days happen at the school level, and then to debrief over what happened at the professional learning days, because traditionally what happens is there's a district initiative on that day 1, which is the 29th, and then it's specific content on the 30th for day 2. And so that gives them the 31st. So that's a great question, Mr. Lancaster, and how they specifically wanted that day right there on the 31st as an instructional focus day to do that. The other options do allow for that as well. It's just that one of the instructional focus days is before the 2nd day of content.
So will that instructional focus day on the 31st be in their building? Is that what we're saying?
Yes, sir. All of the instructional focus days, unless, with the exception of the Sumner Gives Back this year and last year, were, I apologize, 1 day was the content last year, but usually 4 out of the 5. And I think with the committee recommendation, our team will make sure that that is a opportunity for them to work on the ongoing pieces from what they had learned those 2 previous days.
Right.
We will recommend that.
Yeah, and like I said, that's the biggest issue I understand. I mean, the last day of school, if you don't know, teachers are doing one thing. They're packing up all their stuff and moving it to one side of the room because they're going to do the floors over the summer, and then sometime over the summer all their stuff gets moved back in, and so they've got to get everything back to normal. Then you got rosters to make. You got, if you're elementary, you've got to write names on 9 million things, and it's just having that time devoted to their classroom is just a high priority for them, and also they just felt like last year they kind of started behind, and that's not ever almost a panic, and that's one reason I think option 2 and 3 are just with those, with that night registration the day before school, that just seems like a recipe for starting, behind.
Well, I do want to clarify that we have to use the instructional focus days under the 2 options that the TDOE guidelines say, which do not include teachers working in their classrooms. And since our team presents, in the application, we're required to submit an agenda. And then their legal team reviews it to make sure it falls within. So my recommendation, because technically all of those purple days are listed as administrative days, state, not to get too far into the weeds of the state policy, but according to the state policy, those are actually discretionary days. Our board identifies them as administrative days. So they're left up to the building administrators to do what they want to on those per your recommendation on board policy. So that I would suggest that the 3rd of August be that day where they have their classroom opportunities there.
That's actually kind of at least to my final point, and I'm sorry to take up so much time, but so I looked at some other calendars, and that's one thing that I noticed that some school districts do is they use one of those administrative days, but they specify that administrative day is like a teacher work day. And it can even be, it can be a flex day or whatever, if they can, if they work over the summer, whatever. But just given, I think that it's just, would go a long way with teachers to have that devoted day on the calendar that's like, hey, we've got time to do this. Because they got to do it. If it's
Right.
on here, if it's not on here, they're still doing it. What we're saying is like, hey, we're recognizing that you're doing that, and we're counting it in one of the days.
You're just naming it on the calendar what that would be. And the only, out of the state policy of those 5
I'm not saying
discretionary days,
yeah, I'm talking about-
one of them has to be a parent-teacher conference.
Right.
And then the other 4 are identified as discretionary days.
Like I say, I think that would go just a long way with teacher appreciation. It's to say, hey, here you go. This is what your that day is for. Thanks.
Mr. Hollis?
Yeah, I was asked this question and couldn't answer it. So there's 180 days of classroom, and there's 13 stockpile days built in, and that includes inclement weather, instructional days, and other things. What if you had 0 inclement weather days and you have these extra days, and the question was, well, why don't we just end school early?
Yeah, it goes back to what he showed earlier. The current law says that you have to hit those days. There's only, even though, so we pick up those days because we go 30 minutes longer than we would technically have to. I would tell you that if you tried to change that schedule, you couldn't make elementary schedules work because of all the requirements. Like, I don't know how anybody could not go the time that we do. But there is going to be legislation put forward in the legislature this cycle. So I don't know if it'd go into effect this year or the following year that would allow more flexibility on that so that you could do that. I believe like 20 or 30 years ago you could do that, but we haven't been able to do that in a long time because we would have to give inclement weather, natural disaster, things like that. Those are the only reasons that we can take those off. Because used to you would see school districts like in May would start taking off Fridays. I would say that the trade-off is where we have to be cautious is just being aware that a significant number of our kids get their hot meals. You know, parents are working, things like that. We've always tried to be, when Jeff's team came up with the instructional focus days, we did that so we could advertise those. Some districts like Williamson do late start days, and some of the feedback that I heard about the late start days is it's really hard on parents that work to get their kids to school at like 10 o'clock versus the regular time. It messes up the buses and everything. And so that would be the only, but I do believe that there will be some flexibility. Some districts are going to 4-day weeks in other states. That's not something that I would necessarily recommend for us, but I do think it would be nice to have some of that flexibility if we had those days in May after testing to be able to look at some of that. Or I think even, we've talked about with Sumner Gives Back, doing some things where we could have some flexibility to do some things at scale for our kids to be able to serve the community, which would also be kind of neat.
Mr. Evans?
Yeah, first of all, I definitely agree with that. I want to make sure, or his point about that day, we're not breaking a code or TCA if we decided to name that day something with specificity, right?
I'd have to go back, and I don't have the board policy memorized. I'd have to go back and see what the board policy says. So I think it would require a change.
Okay.
Because I believe, don't quote me on this, that it says that they're used for administrative days.
So just like we call one parent-teacher conference day, but then it has administrative day.
Right.
We could still call it that, but still say administrative day on it.
Yes, I would.
Yeah.
I'm not a lawyer expert on that, but I don't. It is a discretionary day that the board can determine.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing is, like, those are days that we have always left to the discretion of the school. Like, we don't do district stuff on administrative days, because those are days where you typically have, like, I mean, this is when I was a principal, you would typically have a faculty meeting in the morning, and then that's when you would give teachers that time. You might have, like, new teachers would have to go meet with the bookkeeper to figure out how to handle money. You know, there's some little things like that, but I always try, and I think most principals do, try to maximize teachers having time to set up their rooms and things like that.
Yeah.
On those admin days.
I think anything we can do for clarity, obviously, is always a good thing. I will say it was funny. This was compared to last year, where last year was a pretty overwhelming public opinion on one or the other. I feel like the committee did a good job of presenting options, because I did get feedback on all three, which was not the case last year. So I do commend the committee for presenting us options that people felt like they could discuss and talk about. Obviously, I've caught a lot of flack on social media and some very hateful messages towards me about just my thought on something that we did last year. And I mean, this obviously we can't discuss it now because we're not voting on it. But you know, last year we did vote to change it to Christmas break, when traditionally since 1994 it was called winter break. And personally, I just the reason I have it's not just personal convictions, but the reason why I mentioned that, and I said it on my Facebook, I have no problem saying this. When we did it last year, I immediately got a phone call from a family that was very upset because they felt like their kids were excluded. They felt like they were getting called out. You know? So, when I think about, we literally just talked about integration over isolation. You know, we just use that as talking about our playgrounds. Some of the comments towards me about how I feel about my personal feelings are just not directly true. My feelings are just not about excluding kids. Parents can feel a certain way, but we are making decisions that impact our kids, and so I'd argue that most that want to argue with me and think I'm trying to take away something from one group or another, I think they also wouldn't want to exclude kids too. And so, obviously, I've got a lot of feedback on both sides. I encourage my other board members to get feedback from your constituents as well. This is not an attack on Christianity. This is not an attack on anything like that. I went and looked at all these counties around us. Of the surrounding, I looked at 16 counties around us, and one calls it what we call it. So are those counties wrong for what they call it? No. And it doesn't. At the end of the day, we'll be fine and we'll move forward as a community. But I can't sit up here and I understand my job as an elected official is to represent the majority of my constituents and how they feel about things. This just feels a little different because when you decide to do something like this, we are deciding to exclude kids. And at the end of the day, I do have a problem with that because as a school board, we're supposed to be looking at policies, procedures, budget, and keeping our one employee accountable. And I think that falls outside of that purview. And I want to be careful that as we ramp up these next couple months, with elections and everything else, that our focus is on making a difference, making good policy, good procedures, and taking care of all of our kids. So, I got feedback that was a suggestion that people wanted. So, I may be in the minority, and that's fine. I'll take that. But I do feel like I need to say in here, I'm not trying to come after anybody's personal or beliefs about God, Jesus, anything like that. it was it's a little tough. I know I'm the youngest school board member. Getting called the things I did by local celebrities and local elected officials here in our county the last 24 hours. Why would anybody want to run and be up here and put their name out there? And so I call them out because I think that, I'm fine. I worked in college football. I can take it. But we literally had a day today where we were supposed to be having civil discourse and having conversation. And I can't even do that with people because they've already made their decision about how I am and what my personal beliefs are. So I just say that because I know we're not going to vote on it tonight. I just think that was something that we didn't have to do, and we did it. And I took that feedback, and I took feedback again this year when we presented this agenda. So I'll leave it at that.
Ms. Brittany?
So I do have some questions about the calendar, but I do want to piggyback on what Mr. Evans had to say. Just, I'm speaking to my board members right now, and I want to speak a little bit from the heart about what I heard from my constituents over the last year. Mr. Evans is right. We've got 30 years of calendars, and all of those years are winter break. Wilson, Rutherford, Williamson, they all have winter break. We have spring, summer, fall break. But that's not the part that I think is important, because as a person of faith, I think it is really important for us to recognize that when a public school puts the word Christmas break on our calendar, we actually take something that is spiritual and sacred and we make it secular. That's why we're legally allowed to do it, because it makes it secular. For many Christians, and myself included, this is not a secular thing. This is a birth of it's the holy birth of Christ. And I don't believe that we need to make that spiritual situation, that spiritual celebration, secular. I think it strips it of its sacred meaning. At the same time, I have many neighbors who do not celebrate Christmas, including Christians who choose not to celebrate Christmas for its pagan roots. There's history there that Christians choose not to celebrate, or they choose to celebrate in September. When we use that word, it can make those families feel invisible or unseen in the very schools that their children attend. And I want us to challenge is doing that for the children, like Mr. Wise has always said. I feel very strongly that we should not be using our faith as a sword to divide our community. Scripture tells us in Romans 12:18 that if it is possible, so far as it depends on you, be at peace with everyone, or live at peace with everyone. Not with your Christian neighbors, not with the people who think like you, with everyone. And our community told us last year, in a flood of communication, that this did not feel like an act of peace. In John 13:35, Jesus said, "Everyone will know you as my disciples if you love one another." And I want to challenge each of us. At the end of the day, what matters is that we love each other well. Whether we disagree with what Mr. Evans had to say, whether you think I'm wrong or not, I will love you well. And I'm asking you as a Christian, speaking specifically to Christians, to do that same thing. Paul talks in the Corinthians about not judging the people who are not in the faith. And so let's make sure that when we're having these conversations, it is not our job to dictate to our whole community what a 2-week period should be called from a faith-based standpoint. Choosing to consider winter break over Christmas break is not about erasing faith. It's not about taking Jesus out of the season. In fact, I would challenge you to say that it's the opposite. It is about recognizing that we are a community in Sumner County. This is why I moved here. It's why I love it here. We are a community, and we need to care about each other. Take this next week, think about and pray about. I know most of you are Christians as well, so I'm asking you to pray about this decision, and let's have a conversation. Mr. Lacey, I recognize why you brought this up last year, and I want you to say, I want to have a conversation about our hearts on this. So I'm asking for us to take that time next week without attack, without slander, without name calling, but to have a conversation about what is for the children. Let's get back to I'm gonna jump off my soapbox and back to the calendar. You, with this calendar, especially calendar one of the things that I've gotten a lot of questions about was the reasoning of a 10-week quarter 3 and an 8-week quarter 4. Does that cause problems for quarter-based classes? Because the message I was getting from teachers who teach quarter-based classes is that it would cause a challenge.
For 14 years, I taught a quarter-based class, and again, that's been 8 years, so I'm reluctant to speak, from a teacher standpoint. So, but I do know that with the exception of 2 years in that 14 years, I only had an evenly divided calendar of 9 weeks twice. So it was very, of course, I don't have a vote in this, so I wanted to keep my mouth shut on that. But I did remember those days as a teacher of how it does line up. But what really threw things off, if you look at calendar 3, and because Easter is so early, it required, well, first of all, let me back up. Historically on the calendar committee, it has been brought to the attention every year that spring break is too early, that people on the committee want a later spring break, and they've lost to the argument that you just made, to defer back to that. And when you look at kind of the back and forth, we're gonna go have a week off, and then we have 4 days to make it balanced, to take, because we don't have a choice as to when we take Good Friday off.
Right.
And then by combining it into the spring break, it addressed the previous concerns, even though they never made it to a calendar option because they wanted to be respectful. So I think, I don't want to talk on behalf of the calendar committee, but I think they looked at the opportunity with Easter being so early and the not having to have the day off and then the week off right before testing. It's like, okay, if we're going to give them this time off, let's give them this time off. And that was a balancing act because one quarter is longer, third quarter is longer than fourth quarter.
Yeah, okay, awesome. That's helpful. It helps me be able to explain it when I'm asked. I also am curious, was option 1, was this discussed? Was option 1 unanimous because of the registration night? Because the way that it seems to be playing out on the feedback I'm getting is that option 1 is preferred because of registration night, but if you ask the question if registration was different, would you prefer one of the others? And there seems to be.
I don't think that he can speculate on what the committee would have said based on that.
I thought he was at the committee.
He was, but I don't think I don't know that you can say it wouldn't have been I think it's not our place to say.
He can say if it was discussed, right?
What?
He can answer if it was discussed.
Yeah, he can answer it, sure.
I do not recall.
Okay.
I'm looking at my team as well. I do not recall, because there's 32 people there and we're bouncing around to the different groups. I do recall the concern that about the turnaround, but I don't recall whether or not that was the deciding factor for it being unanimous.
Yeah.
I can't,
I mean, we can't speculate what 32 people thought. They voted on that one.
I was just curious if there was conversation about it.
Yeah.
We will get a parent calendar when we decide on a final. Is it?
Yes.
Okay. Wonderful.
Believe it or not, counting those days before we release it out to 100,000 people is we have 10 eyes. So once we get this one, and then we'll meet with the union principal to build his calendar, and then y'all will vote on that in November. But the day after y'all approve whatever calendar next week, we'll have the well, I shouldn't say it'll be within a day, but it'll be shortly after that.
Thank you.
I would, let me add one more thing. I would like to say that one of the things we'll have to be careful on the first semester versus second semester on the days is right now on calendar one, we've got an 87-93 break. So we have to be careful if we shift days around because, you know, it's weird. I actually kind of like the 87-93 because we end up usually with snow and stuff losing more days in the second semester. But you also like, you know, you'd mentioned, Ms. Reddy, about the 10-week, 8-week split second semester. I think the same thing is true. We have to be a little careful to make sure we don't get, because if you push down to like 86, 85 days, that's, you know,
Oh, yeah.
especially in high school, block scheduling and AP classes and things like that.
I think the admin move wouldn't change the number of
Right.
days at all. So
No, I'm not, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just saying like we just have to, you know, as you go through the calendar a couple
Yeah.
times, you realize it's kind of like Dr. Young said, the most important thing is that it has to equal 180.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
I would ask, there's a lot of confusion around instructional focus days, which I think you know, which is why we always go over it. We need the refresher, but so does everybody else. I'm still a little unsure of what instructional planning means. So if we could, for the next meeting, have a little more detail about that. I just would like to be able to communicate that more effectively, and then to understand, because I think a lot of the feedback I get is that it's not approached equally across the county, which we've got different schools, things are going to happen differently, but just kind of a better understanding about what that should be.
Sure. I reached out specifically to the general counsel or the TDOE general counsel and asked, because this was the feedback last year, like, can we use these for planning? Can we? And they specifically said no. They said, and I asked for a definition, and I don't mean to laugh, but they couldn't provide me with what a definition was. What they described is what I would consider professional development, that they can be used for trainings, for lack of like to kind of summarize what development versus learning is, IEP meetings for our exceptional ed students, and parent-teacher conferences. So I don't want to mislead by saying the instructional planning is not an option, but the TDOE has said that there's a separate statute that requires that we give X number of hours per week for planning, and then therefore we can't use another set of hours on top of that planning that they're already being paid for on that. So it's I would be happy to forward the.
Ms. Brady, can I ask a clarifying question? Are you
Yeah.
wanting to know like what schools are using that instructional focus day for?
So I
Not
got-
so much the legal as much as like what's happening at the schools?
I think it's a little bit of both, because I get a lot of I had some of these questions earlier this week as I was getting all this feedback. These days are kind of confusing, I would say, to teachers in particular, and the intent and purpose isn't clear. So we get a lot of they become unpopular when people don't understand what they're supposed to be used for and have one thing in their mind of what should be happening, and something different happens. So the communication around them, I would love to be able to be more clear. When we say instructional planning, but we say that we can't do anything
Well,
instructional
I
planning
would say
related,
that
it's
that's
hard.
I would say that we're absolutely doing instructional planning. It's just that it's different than what the state of Tennessee's legal team would call
Yeah.
instructional planning. We're not talking about sitting in a room grading papers, things like that.
Yeah.
We're talking about disaggregating data, doing professional learning community meetings, or doing a lot of things that faculties can do together to look at data to hone practice. That what we've heard forever is we don't have the time to do this. So trying to build that into the day.
I've had a lot of a lot of teachers just say, if we're gonna do all that, I just wanna have the kids in the classroom, which I think that comes from a source of confusion. So I think if we have like a clearer message, that might change.
And I would also say, be cognizant of the fact that there's 2,500 teachers and you're hearing from a small number. So,
100%, a percentage.
yeah.
Yeah. Thank you guys. I know I've dominated the conversation tonight, but I got a lot of feedback, and I love when people get engaged, so I want to make sure I represent them well. Mr. Lancaster, I'm just going to add, I really like your idea of changing it to a teacher workday title.
Ms. Brenning, I'd like to also add that if you think of those 3 buckets, a lot of times the confusion is, well, I've already done my 5 days of professional learning, and it's you got to move it over into that other bucket. It's like those are 5 of your 190 days, and these are 5 different days, just like they would normally be with the students.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes. Thank you, Chairman Daniels. I really appreciate the work of the committee. When my boys were going through school, I served 2 or 3 times on the calendar committee, and it can be a cluster at times. Just trying to everybody get those recommendations we're going to send to the board. So I really appreciate your work. I have had feedback, and option 1, which was the unanimous vote, one that they recommended, the committee did. That's the one that teachers, nurses, some families in the community in District 1, they liked that one. So just for the record. And they liked the fact that they're having time from those registration days that they can prepare, especially the nurses, because there's all these meds, and to go to school the very next day after registration days, and we have a lot of new students that come in, they need time before those kids hit the classroom. So I see why you recommended 1 as the calendar. So I'm supportive of that one unless I see something that dramatically is different or better. So, and Mr. Evans, almost 67 years old and 11 years on this school board, 11 years and a couple of months. I have never found anything productive on social media. There is no civil discourse. It spirals down quickly. And boy, we've all, some of us have been serving this board a while. I think I've been called everything in the book. So, you want to learn how to love well, run for an elected office. That's to love people, no matter what. We can agree to disagree, but to love well. When you have people saying ugly things, and we have feelings, I just take it to the Lord and slam a few kitchen cabinets around the house and talk to Jesus. So, yeah, it's tough. But on social media, nothing productive really comes. Better on a phone call. I really appreciate when I can talk to someone, meet with them face to face. Then you have productive civil discourse. To your point about the winter break or Christmas break, the state of Tennessee on its calendar calls it Christmas. The United States of America on holidays calls it Christmas. I told Mr. Young coming down the hall, I had a dream last night that as Solomon split the baby, when the mamas were fighting over whatever calendar we vote on, this is just food for thought. Whatever calendar we vote on, put it out with 2 readings. Winter break, Christmas. You refer to the calendar you want to look at that suits your family, that you're not offended by. So look at the Christmas calendar for Christmas break. Look at the winter break calendar. And that can be what you refer to, and you will not be offended by that. I know we got a week to think about it. I appreciate what's expressed. When Jesus calls us to love one another, and we're going to be known by that love. I know raising boys, I love them more than they will ever even know. But love doesn't mean that I go along with everything they want. And love doesn't mean that I don't set guidelines. And I don't have a requirement, or this is what mom and daddy say, is what you're gonna do. So love doesn't just condone everything. We have to make choices, and they can be difficult, especially sitting up here. But we could consider whatever calendar we vote on, put it out there online. You look at the one you want to look at, and that should make everybody happy. Thank you.
Mr. Lacy?
I'd like to second Miss Hayes, what she said. You know, I don't want anybody to be offended, but I know me, I've been offended by the stuff this board has done. I still love you. I don't hate you. I don't hate the board members from the past. I know there's books that are on the library shelves that this board has decided that they were not obscene. But the people in Westmoreland said those books were obscene. And the director of schools told the principal to put it back on the shelves. It offended those families. But yet, it's still on the shelves in Westmoreland. Unfortunately, we can get offended. It's life. We're going to get offended. The Bible says the gospel, I believe it says it's offensive. You know, I guess I am a Christian. I love Jesus. I'm not a very good Christian, I don't feel like. But, you know, the United States says Christmas is Christmas. You know, the state of Tennessee says Christmas is Christmas. And the state of Tennessee recognizes Good Friday. You know, Charlie Kirk had a saying, you know, would you rather me lie to you? Tell you something, just change the name of something, and that's what it is. A boy can be a girl. You know, would you rather me lie to you or tell the truth? Christmas is Christmas. Why do we have to worry about offending everybody over the truth? I don't want to, like I said, it's not my intention to offend people, but Christmas is Christmas. Why do we have to offend the masses to appease the 1%? I said, that's just my thoughts. Thank you.
Mr. Evans?
I just want to make it clear, and you made an assumption that I never came after Christmas. No, but that's the way. So, in two things, I want to make sure the assumption about just social media. I also receive phone calls, text messages, emails as well. So it's not just one source of information I'm getting my information from. You want me to be very clear? I know, because I got a call from a pastor this morning because he was sent a message from another pastor that deliberately said that was going to be sent to you to absolutely come after anything I say. So when I got that from two different pastors here in Sumner County, it raised a red flag for me, obviously. So yeah, it is a little like, why would I not take that into consideration? Like,
A point of order.
why is that point of order?
You don't have to attack her.
I'm not. I grew up with her kids. We are.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
right.
we are.
Hey,
I just. But
Mr. Daniels, is it okay? Wait.
It's not just social media though.
Wait, and we text this afternoon. You know, I never received anything from any pastor.
I'm glad.
I told you there was one email that I received that did not have to all of us, that was directed to me. I looked at the top and I went, oh, this didn't go to the Sumner County School Board members. It went to District 1, and I told you his name, and he asked me. He shared his view about Christmas. He didn't say anything. I had no idea until you texted me today.
Yeah.
My name was brought up about calling
And I was
meetings
giving
with pastors.
Yep. Yeah.
So what I said earlier had nothing to do with that. I wasn't even thinking about that.
Okay.
I'm just telling you that social media, nothing. It spirals down quickly, and I learned that early on. There's no healthy debate that goes on there.
I agree with you.
So that's my word as far as what happens on social media. I mean, I have just even quit. It's like we're looking at a train wreck. Y'all, you just find yourself going, oh my gosh, this is just it spirals down quickly. It's mean and it's ugly. And people are up till 2 and 3. The next day I'm looking. These people are up at 2 and 3 a.m. in the morning. And they're still going at it. Get a life. Oh my gosh.
I mean, you say you appointed order me, but like people that support you are calling me everything under the sun, coming after my family.
Hey,
like,
I did not, Mr.
Let's go
Evans.
ahead. I think we've had a lot of questions on
You
the
may
phone
be the
already.
youngest, but I am proud that you are on the Sumner County School Board. each of us bring something different from our life experiences, from our professional world. What we bring to this board is not by happenstance. I believe everything is intended the way it needs to be. So we all bring something to this board, and we're all valuable. We all have worth. And we are gonna all work together. And we may agree to disagree at times, but we're going to be kind and nice. This isn't on the calendar, I apologize. But I think some of these things need to be said on this board.
All right, thank you. Let's go ahead. Thank you for your time.
May I
Appreciate
ask
it.
the director one question, Chairman?
Is it on the calendar?
Yes, sir, that's 100%.
Okay.
The director, I was wondering, apparently we changed it in 1994. Was it done by vote, or was it just taken out of the calendar and nobody told?
What's that? Hang on, I'm checking, Mr. Lacy.
I think the answer to your question is 94 is as far back as we could find records. So we have no idea what we called it prior to 94. I would assume winter break in 93, but what did we call it in 1965? No idea. As far back as we could find records where it's 1994.
I was trying to think what we called it when I was in school, and I can't remember. I just,
You know, like I said, I know everybody calls it Christmas. The teachers call it Christmas. The principals call it Christmas.
All right, next item on the agenda. Thank you, Calendar Committee, for all your hard work. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Mr. Young.
Next item on the agenda.
Good job.
Director of Schools contract extension.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Appreciate it. I had the privilege of sitting down with Dr. Langford. We actually met that Monday or Tuesday before fall break to discuss his contract. And we wanted to give everybody plenty of time. Mr. Johnson tasked us with getting this thing done so that we can get it out. All eyes had a chance to look at it over fall break, and we could come here tonight to start discussion. And of course, we will vote on this next week. You'll see in the document where there were 3 changes made in the contract. Terms of agreement, its employment, reduce the buyout from 2 years to 1 year, and there's a pay increase. And on that point, Dr. Langford did not take a raise last year, which
Ms.
would have.
Haynes, get real quick. I think the screen's locked still. It may still be on the other view. If we
But we can't, where everybody can't see it.
Yeah, no, they couldn't open it up. I had the tab open. I think it was still
Okay.
on the presenter view. All right, there we go. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Now, is that
Sorry,
where they can see it too?
Apologies for interrupting.
Yes, ma'am.
Yep,
Okay.
we're good now.
So, on that, okay, the pay increase. To that point, Dr. Langford did not take the raise last year, which would have put him at $221,000. Right now, he's at $208,000. And so we're moving to $225,000, and that would put him at a $17,000 raise. Now remember, he didn't take one last year. The medium salary of a director of schools with 25,000 plus students is $248,000. Sumner County has 30,000, maybe a little over, students, and we have 4,700 employees. We're the largest employer in Sumner County, and probably one of the larger in the state, across the state. And if you all will recall, in our spring budget meetings, and what we voted on in May, we addressed the pay increases. And what was budgeted included an increase for Dr. Langford. You know, we may not all agree with everything Dr. Langford does, but we can agree on the fact that he is passionate about educating students. We're blessed to have Dr. Langford. is exceptional leadership in Sumner County schools. Born and bred Sumner County man. Educated in Sumner County. I'm taking this out of an email that we all received. As one parent stated, Dr. Langford is passionate about the students. This is his dream job, and it shows. He lives it, eats, and breathes Sumner County schools. I can't think of a more involved director of schools than Dr. Langford. And that was by a parent of students in Sumner County. And just for the pay, when I referred to the $248,000 as a median, so here's some other numbers. Statewide data. 25,000 plus students, an average salary of $264,398, with a median of $255,000. That's statewide on county public schools. Middle Tennessee, average salary $267,317, with a median base salary of $248,000, which I referred to earlier. So, at $225,000 that will be in this new contract, we have a director of schools who has 30,000 students, 4,700 employees, and a school board to deal with. I just want to say, on a personal note, and I may have said this in my 11 years, I was raised in a family of educators. My daddy, teacher, coach, principal, my mother, my sister, my aunt, my grandmothers, education, education, education. It is a thankless job. This man is 24/7. Principals, I hardly ever saw my daddy. It's 24/7. Our teachers, no, we don't pay them enough. We all got emails talking about, yes, we need to pay our teachers more. And you know what? We should, and we could. Your property tax dollars, majority of that goes to education. All it takes is money. And people cry, don't raise my taxes. We could pay our teachers more. We could invest in schools more. I think we're getting a steal of a deal at $225,000 for a director of schools that, as that parent said, lives it, eats it, breathes it. He's at every civic community gathering to talk about Sumner County schools. He's in the schools. He's got a great support staff. And you all support him well. So, that's what I'm putting out there, open for discussion.
Thank you, Ms. Hayes. One thing I do want to mention just real quick is, if there's questions about why are we having this discussion now, there are some state law guidelines around discussions on contracts for director of schools. Number one, I believe you can only have a contract that's up to 4 years. So we're coming to the end of obviously the second year. We're past that second year now. The second thing is there are restrictions on when you can have the conversations based on when there's elections. And so that also, when you look at, contractually, when you have this conversation, you're kind of locked in a certain window. Typically what we've done in the past, I've been on the board for 16 years, 15 years, going on 16 years. It's a long time. Typically, when we've looked at contracts, we've looked at those contracts every 2 years to extend it. You go past 2 years, then you've got someone working on the last year of a contract, or working on a budget with a contract that hasn't been renewed. And obviously, there's discussions then. You typically have CEOs or directors looking for new opportunities with concerns that maybe they won't be rehired or that contract won't be extended. So there is some reasoning. It's not just a number that plucked out and we thought now's a good time to have this conversation. It allows us to extend the contract an additional 2 years. Also, again, as I said, because of state law and guidelines around when you can have this conversation, that's why we've added it to the agenda now. So thank you, Ms. Hayes, for your work, in
And Chairman, may I add
discussions.
this? Excuse me. After we met, and I got the information to Jeremy, Mr. Johnson, we had a three-way, we had a conference call with our attorney. And Todd had a chance. We gave him a few days. He looked over everything. He said, looks good. So the attorney has put his eyes on it, and everything looks great.
Thank you, Mr. Lacey.
Yes, I guess I was with Dr. Langford. I was under the impression the director's making $200,000, not $208,000. I just wanted to get that on the record.
Yeah, I made 200 the first 2 years, and it, like my contract, Ms. Brown, correct me if I misspeak, my contract necessitates that I'm supposed to get an increase each year, and so they put the 4% they put on everybody, knowing
Would that
that
be with the teachers, certified staff?
knowing that we were renegotiate, that we were probably going to renegotiate, so
So you've gotten an $8,000 raise when everybody else got their raise this year?
July 1st. Well, not whenever the budget passed. Ended whenever that was in July.
Like I said, I'm not against people getting raises. We all like to get raises. I mean, I didn't know that you had already gotten a raise. I know, I was thinking the 25,000 increase, that's a 12.5% bump in pay raise. I know our teachers and principals averaged a $3,000 to $5,000 raise. Why? And nothing against the director, but why does he deserve to get a $25,000 raise? Then when our teachers that are facing the students got a $3,000 to $5,000 raise? How is that equitable? How is that fair? I just don't think it's appropriate. And like I said, everybody knows me and the director's not had the best relationships. I do think he cares about the schools. I think he cares about the students, but there's some things that he has done that I don't think he should do. I don't think he's given me the respect of a board member that was elected by the people of District 11. Some of the decisions that he's made, I feel, is detrimental to the schools in Westmoreland, and that's just the way I feel. I think central office, I know a lot of y'all disagree with me, but central office has been bloated with staff. We're cutting positions. If you guys remember, we brought back before the board a few months ago the position in Westmoreland that got cut. Well, after they had an IEP meeting, they said that student needed a full-time person. And you know, it's coincidental, Ms. Brennick asked the director, what's your expert opinion? Do we need that position? The director said we did not need that position. Well, after doing an IEP, they need a full-time person for that student. But his expert opinion said that we did not need it. It's just stuff like that, and we lost that staff person. We lost it. They hired somebody else, but that person had already gotten a job. How much money did we waste in training that person, and then her going somewhere else and having to hire someone else? I mean, I just think we should treat our employees better. I think their morale in a lot of places are down. I'm not saying I want the director fired, but the morale in our community is down with teachers. I think a lot of people are afraid to have a different opinion. And like I said, I just don't like that we cut positions and we add them at central office. I think the most important position you can have to the school is facing students, whether that's a cafeteria person, a teacher, bus driver. It's no offense to people in central office, you do a great job, but the most important position is facing students every day, all day long. And like I said, at this time, I would not be for extending the contract. And if he's already got a raise, I don't understand why we would need to give him another raise. I mean, he got one with the teachers. And why did we have to go above and beyond than what we do to our teachers?
Ms. Brennick?
So I just first want to talk to you directly, Dr. Langford. I know that I can be a squeaky wheel and maybe a little bit persistent about a few things, but I appreciate that you are always accessible, that you're always willing to engage even when you disagree with me. You're always willing to find common ground. I think those are incredibly rare and important traits. I appreciate the way that this team works together with you and the way that you're creating a team that is innovative and changing the way we think about education. I could not be more excited about the work that we're doing in the next few years for Sumner County. I think we are going to see such a shift in the success of our students, and I'm excited to partner with you on that. I'm a data person, and I dove into that same data that you're talking about. It is publicly available. TOSS, I'm completely spacing on the O, but the Tennessee Organization of School Superintendents, thank you, has data out there that I would recommend the community look at for what the state is paying across the state. I think some of the things that really struck me when I looked at the data was that for schools, 20,000 students or higher, our director is the lowest, on the lowest end of that. There is one school, and it's the 20,000 school, that is paid slightly lower, and of the average of those of the rest of the schools that are our size or bigger, our director is the lowest paid by a significant number. Ms. Hayes talked a little bit about what some of those numbers are. The average of those is around the 268 point. And I am a firm believer in recognizing the market value of our employees across the board. You guys have heard me advocate for that before. I will continue to advocate for that. But it would be hypocritical of me to advocate that and exclude certain roles in the community of Sumner staff. I think it is important for us to recognize that even at this number, he's still significantly below everyone else working school systems our size, and yet we have a school system that has the #1 CTE program in the state. We have a school system that has the #1 SRO program in the country. We have so many things to get excited about. The medical care that we're going to be providing for our Portland community is innovative and exciting, and the reason that we're able to do this is because we have a leader who has vision and who empowers their team to act in new and exciting ways that are going to benefit our community. I think it is unfair to say you did not know that there was a raise coming because you voted on it. It was in the budget. It was in the contract that you voted on that half of us didn't ever vote on a few years ago. It is a dereliction of duty to not know what you're voting on. So I think that is just a personal vendetta, and I think this is not personal.
A
This is
point of order, the
professional.
director told me today he made $200,000 a year.
Thank you. Ms. Bernie, will you please continue?
And we have a commitment to this community to make sure that Sumner County is great, and I think the work that we're doing is getting us there. And I want to continue that work, and I want to continue partnering with you on it, so I will be supporting this.
Thank you. Mr. Lancaster?
Yeah. So when we did this 2 years ago, I think the thing I asked Mr. Brewer at the time, we never came up with or anything like that. And this is not about Dr. Langford, this is about the position. The position is basically the CEO of Sumner County Schools. A CEO position, generally, in most organizations, and definitely in school systems our size, generally has a performance-based component to it. That's the issue I have with our contract, the way we have it written. I think we've got to get to a place with our contract where we have a base salary and a performance component on top of it. So a bonus piece. We are entrusted by the community to hire a director and hold him accountable. I think we do a general good job of that. This is not saying that Dr. Langford hasn't done a good job, But we need to be able to provide performance-based metrics saying, hey, what we want out of our director is what we want out of our school system is we want our students to have growth in certain areas. We want our teachers to be retained, have a high teacher retention. We want to have our budgets met, all these different things. And what other schools that are like Knox County, other large school systems do is they have a performance-based, with quantifiable metrics that we can look at and say, here's what happened, here's what we wanted, and here's the bonus that he earned for that.
One thing I do want to mention, and I think it's a question that we need to ask our board attorney. I'm not sure if there are rules in state law around what can be in a contract, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure if we can add metrics and a bonus structure. We might be able to, but I think it's my understanding that there are laws around that. Mr. Johnson, are you?
Yeah, I mean, I looked at other,
I'm not your
other
attorney.
schools that.
We'll get Mr. Personnel.
I looked at other
I
schools
just
that
want to make
had
sure that we
something.
get with the board attorney to get any clarification on that. I would say that I think that one place we could look at metrics is when we do the director evaluation on an annual basis. Is I think we could have a study session where we look at that evaluation and bring those metrics into that document. That way we do have something to look at and grade the director on from a metric standpoint on an annual basis.
And I mean, not to, again, I brought this to Mr. Brewer when he was chairman, and he kind of gave the same, like, hey, we'll look at it in a study session. At some point, I mean, it's like we're the cart chasing the horse. I just wanted, we have got to get to a point.
Then I would say when you come to the meeting, come with the metrics that you'd like to add to the contract as amendment, and then the board attorney will be here, and he can provide guidance on that.
And like I said, it's not anything against Dr. Lang. I think it actually strengthens the community relationship with Dr. Langford when they see, okay, he met what the board voted on, and he earned this piece of his. You're still going to have a base. This is not going to be 100% performance based, but like whatever we decide on, I just think that's where we have to get as a. I mean, we're a divided politically community. We're always going to be more than likely. It's just it's got to be more than just, hey, we all like Dr. Langford, let's give him this, or we all like this superintendent, let's give him this. I think if the more quantifiable metrics that you put in there, that you say, hey, this is why. This is what we agreed to. This is, we showed the proof that we met it. We've got the graduation. Whatever those pieces are, it supports our argument that he has earned his raise. Not saying that this is not saying that he does not deserve whatever. I have no qualm. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, 225 to 208, it don't matter. It's $17,000. We're on a $360 million budget. I look at things in numbers. That don't matter. What matters is we have some level of accountability, and where we're setting goals, we have performance measures that are coming back to us at a certain point in time, and we're basing a part of that bonus structure off of that. That's just how it's done everywhere else. So that's food for thought. I will be glad to draw something up and present it.
Thank you. Mr. Evans?
My first thought was we have our board retreat coming up. Would that not be a time to have that? That'd be a time to workshop that a little. So I just know that's coming up. Secondly, thank you for giving a little bit of a breakdown there, Ms. Tammy. So I appreciate that. I support you. I appreciate you. Yeah. I know.
I'm sitting here looking at the director of schools contract.
You know.
I'd love to see an example.
Just let me have Mr. Evans.
Yeah, I was just saying. My question would be this: I think about. I come from the world of sports, so it's kind of like think about like a head coach, and in the world of NIL sports right now, when you think about players obviously going from school to school or just looking for the best opportunity, the most money, take care of their family, because at the end of the day, we're all here to take care of our family first and foremost. I think about like this position as a whole, regardless of Dr. Langford. Like at some point, it won't be him; it'll be somebody else. We're setting up the position as it is. So right now, saying that we're way below the average, that's concerning to me. That if he just decided tomorrow he's going to take off and go take care of his granddaughter, that we're not going to be competitive to actually hire a top candidate because can't be competitive financially. So to me, that's kind of like a red flag because I'm taking him out of this situation. It's just in general, and I think that there's still a little bit of a bad taste. I mean, I knew about this, and this is before I decided to run. I know when the last superintendent left with the consulting fee that was voted on and agreed upon, I think there's a lot of bad taste still with what happened there, and like kind of tied to this. But I would the pushback I would say to that is that there is the year that's like not opt out. What's the term exactly? We have a year. I mean, you put like a year termination clause, right? It's called. Yeah. Like, I mean, that's that's different than that making us pay him a consulting fee. So that's him sticking his neck out a little bit. So I also want to mention I see that as well. One thing I would think about with this is I think about consistency. The problem you see with a lot of coaches. I mean, I don't joke about like the Titans just fired their coach yesterday, but like that just set us back 5 to 6 years. Realistically, we have so many major initiatives going on, including playgrounds and some of the other things we're trying to do with the Innovation Center that we're about to talk about. And I know we're really starting to look at like what high school looks like in the future. And my concern with doing anything that would make him want to walk away is that we're basically just setting ourselves back down the line. So what I think about here is when we're looking at an extension, I think that the consistency here allows us to see those major initiatives through, and I do think they're going to take until 2029 to complete, realistically. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you. Ms. Brittany?
From a corporate space, I agree metrics are an important thing when we talk about performance, and I think that is a good move for us to put around our director evaluation. But I would challenge that very much more often, contracts and performance are divorced. They're not put together in the corporate space. And quite often, comp and performance are not tied, though bonuses do happen to be tied for some companies. It depends on how the company plays out. But I would love to see if we had the opportunity as a people leader, when I look at considering goals and performance metrics and KPIs for my team, I am asking my employees to start with a foundation of goals that they want to accomplish. And then, as their leader, I'm taking those goals and I am adding what I want to see out of them. And so I think it would be really nice for us to focus on not only metrics, but what are some of the goals that we're doing, and when we set those, making them in the, if you're familiar with the SMARTER acronym, so specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound, and then SMARTER changed it to add evaluate and readjust, because we want to set goals that are strong goals, but mid-year you also want to make sure you readjust if things have changed. If we have a different perspective, if we have a new information, we adjust so those goals continue to stay fresh and good. So I think having goals, having metrics, we already have some for the evaluation, expanding that and being more intentional on what those goals and metrics, those are great. What doesn't typically happen is that those are tied to the contract, but they're divorced from them. So I think that'd be a really good thing, like multiple people have said, to talk about in our retreat.
Before I go to Mr. Lacey, one thing I do want to mention is, as we've kind of gone through the board meeting today, we've gotten a little off the rails. Please wait until you're called on to speak, right?
You don't have to do that. It's called point of order, do you?
Let's, Mr. Lacy, can I please speak?
You were speaking, but I'll ask the question.
Please wait a second. Please wait till I call on you to speak, all right? If you have a point of order, you can raise it. I'll address it. Let me address it. Number two, if you've got a comment you want to make about a board member, don't direct a comment to that board member. Direct it to me, please, and refer to a board member if that's what your intention is. All those comments should be made to me, all right? Right now what we're doing is we're attacking each other, and it doesn't look good. It doesn't feel good. It looks like we're disorganized. It looks like we're disrespectful. We expect people to follow us as leaders, and we're not acting like it tonight. And there have been previous meetings where we haven't acted like it. I'm frankly embarrassed. We're better than this. We know how to treat each other. We know how to act. So let's please do that moving forward. All right? So if you have any comments about a board member, please direct it to me and refer to a previous board member. And then please wait until I call on you to make a comment. Just release it.
Yeah, like before I was accused of dereliction of duty, the director sent me an email today and I asked what is his current salary. He said $200,000 a year. And if you know the budget so well, how much did we increase our legal fees this year in our budget? Does anybody know off the top of their head how much we raised it? Anyone? That's a dereliction of duty. If you don't know, we raised our legal fees from $800,000 to $950,000. That's pretty important if you didn't know we did that.
All right. Next item on the agenda, Innovation Center.
Mr. Anderson, if we could, we've got our team here for benefits, and they've got some information that's probably like, I love to geek out on the Innovation Center and share all the great things there, but if it would be okay, would you mind if they went first? Because I'd love for their information to get out, because it's really exciting.
Absolutely, yes.
And I'm really, I think Ms. Brennan, you mentioned last month with, go ahead, Ms. Brennan, go ahead and get there. But with Ms. Herron and her team's work for J.W. Wiseman, like, I think what you're about to hear on our benefits highlights is equally exciting, and I'm really thankful. I don't know that anybody appreciates the complexity of the work that Ms. Brown leads, but if you think about everything that she's responsible for, it's not just payroll, it's not just the budget, but it's also things like, in addition to the sizable budget that we run, the benefits is amazing. I had coffee with my brother-in-law this morning, and he does a lot of work in healthcare, and he just got back from a conference, and he said they were talking about, if you look at the price of a car, the number one contributing factor to the cost of the car is health insurance. And they went across every industry, and the number one cost was employee health care. And the increases are staggering across the sector. So I just want to say that to preface the amazing work that this team has done.
So I'm going to introduce my team. I'm probably not going to do near as good a job as Frankie. I was like, ooh, I should have gotten some fun facts, and I did not. I apologize. But I want you I want to introduce Earl Bashong and Dina Sheldon. And I think maybe Earl might have, did you last year? But Earl's been with us for a long time. How long is it, Earl? 10th year, and he does a great job. He's our supervisor over all of our medical and dental, all of our additional benefits that we have. And then Dina Sheldon is over our retirement, and this is a newer position for Dina, but she has been in our district for a long time, and she is an expert in many things. I actually say she has a magical skill. She's one of the best reconciliation people I've ever seen. She's actually wonderful at it. But my team, they do an amazing job. And as Dr. Langford was mentioning, Earl goes above and beyond trying to find creative solutions for our employees and trying to enrich our benefits. And he has a real heart for it, and I'm proud of our team, and I'm excited for Dina. She's got some cool news about some of our retirement options for our employees. So I'll let them speak for themselves, but they're amazing, and our team's great. So thank you.
Good evening. Good evening. you look at benefits, and you look at all this interesting stuff called medical, dental, vision, insurance, and you're just blown away. It's just so awesome. But in reality, it is, because as you know, that's what brings a lot of people into Sumner County Schools. And you lay out all of our benefit packages and what's offered to employees, you take a step back because it is mind-blowing. You can look at all these different companies, Nissan, Blue Cross Blue Shield, all these other companies have thousands and thousands more employees and millions of more dollars, and they don't have the benefits packages that's offered to the employees of Sumner County Schools. So applaud yourself for that. Applaud the leadership of the board for that, because you guys together is what's created all this, and it is one of the biggest recruitment tools that we have, is this benefits. And you have to excuse me, I'm getting over a 3 stuffy cold, so. But basically what I would like to do is just kind of go over and give you a snapshot of our benefits. Like I said, it is, one of the biggest tools that we have outside of wanting to live in Sumner County, wanting to work with one of the better organizations in the county, the leadership and the staff and the peers. There's a lot of positives. But like I said, once you start spelling this out and really putting pen to paper, this is just a basic package. And you can go through, like I said, pull up Nissan and see what they offer their employees. It's not going to include near as much as what you see here. And then you turn the page and then look at the price. That's what's going to blow you away. That's what's going to blow you away about what Sumner County is able to offer, the amount of benefits that they're also able to offer at the cost. It's pretty mind-blowing. And I get contacts from counties all over Middle Tennessee, the state for that matter. Our broker, Travis, which I'm sure most of you know, out of Atlanta, always wants to use Sumner County as, as an example of this is the right path, this is the right thing to do, and this is how they're doing it. And guess what? They're not breaking the banks in order to do this. They're just using all the services and all the insurance and all the things they have to offer, and they're piecing them together, and they're making them communicate. And they're making all these big companies communicate and work together for the betterment of the employees and their families. One of our biggest news stories, I guess, positive, is our clinics. You cannot believe the amount of comments that we receive in the benefits department, not just from the Board of Education family, but also from other employers, other employees from other employers from different counties, of what we're able to do with the clinics that we have that's co-located with our schools and the services that are provided at no cost to the employees. This is massive. I get comments all the time, employees or their family members say, we don't even have a primary care. We go to the clinics. And we've received the best care in the 30 years that I've lived in Sumner County through the Board of Education clinic. And we continue offering services through them. Last year we offered x-ray capabilities. Now we have, I don't want to take apart from the next slide, but we're continuing to partner and strengthen this relationship that we have with One2One, which by the way is absolutely fabulous to work with, very transparent, and they take such good care of the families and employees of the Board of Education. It's phenomenal, phenomenal. Of course, the Sumner County Health Clinic locations. Outside of the clinics, other things that set us apart from other employers is what we continue to try to, think outside the box. What can we offer employees? One, not just to put it on paper and make it look, oh, gee whiz, you got another benefit. No, we want to make it useful to the employees and the families, right? Why offer them something that's just is garbage and end up costing money? That's not what we're doing. That's not what you guys approve on. That's not what the leadership develops and thinks about as they piece together this package. And so some of the things that's added or that we've added over the last year or two, Healthcare Blue Book, which provides an incentive to employees that enroll in medical insurance to use a cream provider. They get an incentive back. And it's basically a high-low cost system that goes through. And so if they go, for instance, they have 3 providers in Sumner County, one is a green provider, the other was a yellow provider, one's a red provider. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're bad or they're not, they don't provide good service. It's just that this person that's providing this, surgery is more cost effective, still high success rate. But if that employee decides to use them, they get an incentive for using them, a monetary incentive for using that physician. One thing we just added was physical therapy. It's primarily virtual based, but however we use our clinics, and when one provides a staff or it's a space for them to bring physical therapists on site, north and south, so it covers both up north and south of the county. And I will tell you, the employees, it's great. It's been a great benefit, been very receptive, and it doesn't cost the employee anything. Shared savings program. This is another program that's been around longer than I've been here. It's the incentive for those, incentive for those employees that are not enrolled in Born Insurance, but at one time was enrolled, and then it decided to get on their spouse's insurance. And the shared savings program is developed by Arista, which provides an incentive for that employee to move off to go to another insurance, therefore it lowers the cost of insurance for the board. So it's another cost change factor. One thing that we're adding this year is the CARE program. This was something over the last few years that we've received a lot of feedback. A lot of people asking questions. This is something we need to do. Look into it. So we started looking into it, and it has. It's taken about 2 years to really to bring things together and get a good model and services that employees and the dependents would like or that they have asked about and requested. So the CARE program, and there'll be more information to follow later on. But basically, it's a service that provides family resources, IVF information, fertility information, menopause information, just a wide wealth of information.
I don't want to interrupt you, but let me just say real quickly that we had a conversation, Ms. Brown, Earl, and I did about a year and a half ago, about the fact that we have a significant number of female employees, I believe around 75–80%. And care for things like menopause, hormones, things like that, it's just not there. I mean, women after childbirth years are basically told this is just life, suck it up. And I want to really commend them, because when you go in the marketplace, there's really not much out there for them. Maybe book studies, maybe some counseling. And I'm not saying those things are important and they're included in care, but what they have done in relatively short order is really pretty remarkable. And it just, to me, it highlights their commitment to, beyond what you see on a PowerPoint, as good as this PowerPoint is, every one of those letters on that screen is couched in the love that they have for our employees. And that's important to see and celebrate, because let me just tell you, this is something that's not everywhere. Sorry, Earl.
They're finding a good voice rest. So that is coming soon, and it is a program, as Dr. Leffer said, there's not a whole lot of information out there, or at least people you can physically talk to. So it's going to be a great service. Employee assistance program. This is a free service that's offered through one of our insurance companies. That's Wheels, things legal counseling, things like that. Is service probably one of the most underutilized services we have, because it is wrapped up underneath life insurance, and a lot of people don't realize it's there. And so we're continually trying to educate people. You have this. This is your benefit. This is available to you. We want to make you knowledgeable of what you have, because there are so many, like I said, starting off, the benefits that's offered. I'm not saying you could get too many benefits, but you can start layering where people can't start seeing the stuff underneath. So you have to continually spread it out on the table and to push the information to the employee and the dependents, because that's 90% reason why they can't do Summit County Board of Education. And then 2, that's what they pay monthly premium for. So you want to educate them to let them know this is what you have, and let the benefit work for them. PerkSpot is something that we're starting this year. It's something that the state uses. It's basically an employee discount program. We contracted through them. It's free of charge. We have our own marketplace website. Employees and their family members can go on there, get Disneyland tickets, flight tickets, all of these different things for a discount. Is what that new discount program is for. Like I said, I mentioned outside the box earlier with leadership and really listening and presenting these things in front of you guys and getting your guidance and your thoughts on what's out there. It gives us these opportunities to think outside the box, and continue adding and pluck away at what we have available in our own community, but also in the state and so forth. So we're always doing outreach. I'm on the Sumner County Wellness Committee, also the Mid-Cumberland Regional Health and Wellness Council. So having those resources and be able to pull those in is really helpful because, like Dr. Langford said and Amanda said, the sole point of us being here is for the employees and their family members. I mean, that's really the bottom line. You want to get to it. I'll go ahead and steal this, but you probably already know. We will not have medical premium increases next year. So that's unheard of. But if you look back at it historically, Sumner County's done a very great job. You guys' leadership, of course, done a great job of managing cost, and that allows, for things like this to happen. And so, I know we're more likely having one, if not possibly two, premium-free months, but we'll see. But anyway, so this is great news. So and benefits on that great news. But the benefits package as a whole, as you already know, is great news. It is a great benefit for employees and families.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just to add a little bit to what Earl said. So this year, just to expand a little bit on CARET. So CARET is helps with family planning. It's an adoption support, an IVF support. It's also menopause, and there's a lot of us women getting close to that, and so there's a void in the market for that kind of support, and so that is something that we have realized was a need. And looking around, it's very hard to find, and so Earl started researching a lot of different companies, and I put a lot of restrictions on certain things, but I think it's going to be a really a phenomenal no-cost benefit to our employees. So it's just an add-on for them. This is not something that they have to pay for. It'll be just part of our benefits package to them, and so very exciting. And I will also say, so right now, and Dr. Langford, I'm sure we'll talk about this a little farther, but next week, is it next week, our board meeting, so we are hoping to propose another premium holiday, 2-month premium holiday. And I want to make sure everybody understands that that is not something that is just a given. That is something that we work very, very hard on the financials and really evaluate hard. And so, but that is something we were able to do this year, which was a great perk for our employees. And financially looking at it again, we are also going to be able to do that and continue with those low premiums, and that's unheard of in the market right now. And that is a lot of hard work and analysis going behind the scenes to ensure that we're keeping our costs down, but also still expanding our benefits. And so he mentioned Aware Health. It's a virtual, but it's also on site, and it's been a great product for our employees. So Katie and I both went. It's been great. So anyway, just little things, but there's a lot of great, as Earl mentioned, a lot of great benefits that our school district offers.
Yeah, and I would add that. Can we go back to the previous slide real quick?
I don't know. I like the one with the meme. We can go back to that.
Yeah, right here. But if you don't mind me, Dr.
No, go ahead. Yes, sir.
One thing I do want to say is we're looking at this, and I know we have this conversation all the time when we get into budget season, and we talk about teacher pay increases, and we look at what other counties are doing. And you hear people say this all the time. A lot of people come to work in Sumner County because of the benefits. Benefits are part of your compensation package. It's not something separate. It's part of your compensation package. When you look across the insurance market right now, and what some of the projections are as far as what rates are going to do depending on where you're getting insurance. When I look like what I pay for from an insurance standpoint from the family where I work, when I know what other people make in businesses and private businesses, the fact that we're able to hold these rates steady and not increase those. If you were on the state plan this year, I don't know what their numbers are going to be, but you're probably talking a couple extra $100 maybe. I don't know what
Which is
the
about
number's
7 or
gonna be.
8%.
Yeah, so you're talking about a pretty big jump, and then you look at the potential for a holiday. We're talking about typically we've looked at December, January. You know, when you've got parents looking at, you know, if I'm on the, you know, PPO standard plan and I've got a family and I'm paying $630 a month for my insurance, and now I've got 2 months around the holidays where I don't have to pay that. And yeah, I know we got taxes and things like that factor into this calculation. That's a big deal for these families. And so I think it's important we talk about teacher salaries and things like that, and we talk about these insurance rates, that we just don't discount this as something else. It's a very important part of why we have the teachers we have. It's an important part of the compensation model, and it rolls into why teachers want to come and work here and want to stay here. It's not always about I can get $1,000 more if I go to Davidson County or Williamson County or somewhere else. There are reasons that drive people here, and this is one of them. And when we went to this insurance package, we went to our own personally, you know, insured health system years ago. There's a lot of conversation about there. A lot of board members at the time that thought it was a bad idea, that we were going to potentially put ourselves at risk down the road. So Amanda and her team, Dr. Langford and the team have done a really, really great job of being able to not just manage this from a rate standpoint, but the holiday standpoint, but as she just mentioned, being able to add additional benefits year over year over year, including the Care Here clinics and everything else that we've got that you can't find in most counties across the school system. So I just wanted to call that out. So Dr. Langford, you gonna?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, and I just would echo what you're saying. I mean, I would say of all the things we've done over the last few years, I got more emails from our staff on the 2-month holiday last year about what an impact it had around Christmas to be able to have that money back. And I'm excited that we're going to be able to do that 2 months. And, you know, I think they did a great job of talking about managing cost, and that's why we're able to do these things. But beyond managing the cost, when you think long term, the reason that it's worked out so beautifully is I can remember when I came back to Sumner County in 2009 that insurance was not what it is now, and we had a significant, and pay was not what it was. We had a significant number of our, especially our classified staff, that made right at minimum wage. So even though we had great benefits, they couldn't access it because of pay. The one-to-one clinics are a game changer long term for the overall, if you think beyond just managing costs, which is important, but also taking care of our employees long term. Like, we have employees that are getting care that they've never done before, like getting care for diabetes, treatment for type 2 diabetes. You know, things like, I was skeptical about online physical therapy, right? But I am terrible at physical therapy. And I got rear-ended last year around this time, and I didn't do it for like 6 months. And I did the online, and it's great. And, you know, if you think about, like, it sounds crazy, but it lets people with, you know, it's hard to get into to get PT, but if you work a job and you've got kids and you've got practice and you've got everything else, it's hard to get to do PT, but you can do it, you know, pretty much any time, and you're just in your office. You just have to lock the door so Jeremy doesn't walk in on you while you're doing your PT because he makes fun of me.
We'll also try to film it.
Yeah. But I mean, it really just, but I mean, they're so proactive, and I just can't, I don't want to belabor, I know you'll have more presentation, but to see the thing, to look at what families were paying to go get an outpatient x-ray, and to be able to add an x-ray machine at Ellis. And the only thing that's holding us back on some of these services is just the physical constraints of our clinics. I think it would be something whenever we build schools in the future, we want to include employer-student health clinics in the build and design of the school, because it can save so much money. And it's beyond just saving the money, it saves money for our employees, but it also makes it so much more likely that they're going to get care. And that improves their quality of living, it improves their quality of life. You know, it's just, it really, of all the things that we do, I'm as proud of what this team's sharing tonight, because it's made such a huge difference in the quality of life of our employees, and especially our employees, that do some of the toughest tasks in the school district every day. To be able to go receive health care is a huge blessing. So thank y'all so much for that.
Sorry, you can go on to retirement benefits now.
And when you cross the 30-year threshold, here's the best part.
I'm not nearly as exciting as Earl, sorry about that. So as part of our retirement plan, we have TCRS, which is the state, mandated plan for certified, and we have the county elected to have it also classified, which I'll get to in a minute. But basically you have two certifications, or two types of employees. One's a legacy employee. Those are those certified employees who started with the TCRS covered employer before July of 2014. We contribute 5.77%. That is mandated by the state. The employee also contributes 5% directly to TCRS. For a hybrid employee, that's those employees employed after July 2014, the employee contributes 5% to TCRS. The employer, we contribute 4% to TCRS and 5% to a 401k through Empower. For classified employees, we contribute 12.22%. Classified employees do not have any contribution at all. We have voluntary retirement through Empower for a 401k, both Roth and traditional. We are going to start doing a 457 plan through Empower beginning in January. Currently, we have it through Corbridge Valak. That is going to end in July. They also provide us with a 403B, which will also end in December. Sorry, I think I said July, I meant December. So the 403B plan will stay with Valak, Corbridge Valak, and the 457 will transition over to Empower. It should be just a seamless rollover is what we've been assured that it's going to be. As part of our retirement plan or retirement package, if you qualify under some things with the state, 20 years of service at age 60 or 30 years of service with no age requirement. You have, 10 years of service with Sumner County Board of Education and at least the last 36 months of your employment before retirement, you would qualify to continue health, dental, and vision benefits. You get 1 year of benefits for every 3 years of service for a maximum of 10 years of benefits or until age 65. And those employees that qualify for the board policy for retirement also get a life insurance policy valued at $35,000 until age 70. And we just, this is a very good plan. Most people that come in talk about how important it is for them to be able to continue their benefits at retirement. They are very, very pleased about being able to do that if they qualify. We try everything we can to make sure that everybody is informed and knows what they're getting. So that's pretty much it. Anybody got any questions?
I'll just add to TCRS. It is a state retirement plan, but it is one of the most stable in the world. If you look it up, last time I looked it up, it was like number 7 ranked in the world for stability, which is major. You've heard of states, cities, all retirement funds going bust. TCRS is very stable. I also just wanted to note, so you saw some different rates that we contributed for hybrid or legacy. So those rates are set by the state and they're actuarial determined. So we don't get to decide that. Those are set by an actuary to say you must to continue a certain to make it stable, right? You must contribute this much for your legacy and your hybrid. And the legacy and hybrid is also not something that we chose. That was something that was changed by TCRS back in 2014. And so basically that legacy is what you called it's an old school pension. It's a defined benefit. And then the hybrid is a partially defined benefit, but also defined contribution. So a portion of that, you put in what you put in, it's going to grow based on market, as opposed to the defined benefit is based on a formula, so many top salaries, all that. So those are the two differences. And then the classified is also a defined benefit plan. And the amount that we put in every year for that also is actuarial determined, and David Lawing, or the county, there's a discussion with the county commission and the school board, and we determine what rate that is based on their recommendation. We can't go below what they recommend, but we have to have a minimum there. So just so you guys know, that's also defined in it. So very, very good plan for TCRS. So.
Mr. Evans?
Yeah, I just want to compliment y'all about, I mean, this was I kind of got like a first-hand experience of our benefits because changed jobs, joined my wife's plan as she's a teacher here, and then we had our daughter this summer, so I kind of learned all the intricacies of all the moving parts. And I'll say that I will commend our office here. I mean, there were some questions and things that we had to figure out. And so, seeing it in firsthand, I appreciate that. I just want to give you, I can't do a broad statement, but at least my personal experience, it was pretty seamless, and I feel like I got my answers heard and answered very quickly, which I think helped our experience. So I appreciate that.
Ms. Barnes?
That's great. That's great. And office is always open doors. So anybody wants to learn more, stop by.
Ms. Barnes?
Yes, just a quick comment. Really to thank you for the work you do. I work for a corporate, a Fortune 200 company, and we just started getting virtual PT this year. But as I looked over the extras that you have available for our employees and for our teachers, and then also the rates, you've got a Cadillac program. And I know you know that, but it's just, it's ensuring to see because, as you said, Mr. Daniels, this is a package that makes us competitive when we're, recruiting for teachers, for classified personnel. So thank you for just the aggressive and innovative approach and, staying diligent with this. So thank you.
One question on, sorry, Ms. Hayes, on the retirement side, I know there's the funds that are paid into the retirement package. And I know it depends on when you retire, is it 20, 25, 30 years, because there's escalators. What's the number that the state's looking at to determine that the retirement payment to the teacher? Is it the last 3 years' salary? Is it your high five?
Highest 5 salary, highest 5 years of salary.
Okay.
5
All right.
consecutive years.
5 consecutive.
5
Gotcha.
consecutive highs.
So, but the bottom line, this is what I've learned, Mr. Daniels, is always refer them to her to ask that question individually because it's so particular.
I know it's a good package because my parents were both teachers and now they're retired and they're never home. They're always traveling somewhere. They were in Croatia. I didn't even know they were out of country until I saw my mom posted she was in Croatia. We're flying over to Croatia, looking at mountains. I'm like, man, I'm not going to have anything left. So, but you know what? They're teachers. They deserve it. So anyway, it is, again, that's just another, those are things you don't think about. But it pays off for those that are in the education business. The rest of us are just hoping the market stays positive, so our 401k gives us something when we retire. But Ms. Hayes?
Yes. Chairman Daniels, I really get my 3 sons kind of upset when I say, may the last check bounce. Because I'm out spending the money. They go, what about us? Y'all figure it out. I have a question just because I'm very curious. What sparked the 2014 a hybrid? So why was there the change in that? You had the legacy and then what
So
happened?
that was a state decision, TCRS.
And based on what?
State law.
Yeah.
They changed state law.
So I don't know what their rationale was, but it was nothing. We were told that we weren't asked. So that is.
Gotcha. Just curious.
I will say during that time there was a lot of old school pension programs that were going bankrupt because it pays a certain amount regardless of market, and so there may have been some discussion around that, but I can't speculate.
Thank you.
Anything else? Do you want to jump back to the Innovation Center?
Thank y'all so much.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Everywhere Earl goes, people clap for him. It's just part of who he is.
As I'm leaving.
You know, like, I'll ask Ms. Brown and Ms. Skinner to jump in. We have spent the better part of the last 4 months doing everything, taking occupancy of the Innovation Center on August 1st, finding out that regardless of how large of a client you are for Comcast, they move at the same glacial space, whether, you know, you get the same window. We'll be there between Tuesday and Tuesday next week, between 6 a.m. and midnight. You know, so there's been some interesting things. I want to commend the county, you know, just everybody working together. You know, Mayor Isbell has given us so much praise and so much support for the Innovation Center. Our road superintendent went out and helped us. You know, like one of the things to get kids safely in and out is going to be able to use the back entrance. If you drive back there, you can drive all the way to Chute Lane. So Mr. Ellis went out and helped us with some bush hogging and some tree work to make it possible for us to be able to navigate back there. Just because, you know, it's like we're bought into what each other's doing, whether it's the sheriff's office. This is beside the Innovation Center, and it's way outside, so I'm just going to ask for an apology ahead of time. I meant to say this at the start. I really want to commend Gallatin High School for honoring our SRO, Officer Soares. And I happen to be sitting by some California police officers at the ceremony because he was retired from California from 2 or 3 different agencies, and there were a number of those officers that were there. And you know, they said that they didn't understand why he wanted to be in schools because it's so different in California. But when they came and saw the outpouring of love, to see a principal, teachers, and students move to tears to talk about the relationship that they had with Officer Soares, it spoke volumes to them about why he had chosen the path that he did. And you know, that's that same spirit that you see with Mr. Ellis, with Officer, you know, with Sheriff Craddock. You know, when Sheriff Craddock called me to let me know that Officer Soares had passed away, I didn't respond like I normally would with words. I was so stunned, and I called him back later, and I was like, I'm so sorry. Like I still can't believe it. You know, and I think that highlights the connection that we have. And like today, we were in a meeting, and one of our higher level SROs just popped in to say hi. You know, because they're using the Innovation Center. So we're able, like some of the things I think is really exciting is the sheriff's office having to pay a significant amount of money to do training because they have a lot of officers. And it's hard to get a space. Corporate training spots are hard to find. So they're able to do their trainings at the Innovation Center and save the county money by using the Innovation Center. And they're so excited. Like we're going to have criminal justice in the spring at the Innovation Center. They're going to take one of the conference rooms and make it an incident center. So our kids are going to be able to train with our SRO leadership, with Katie Brown's team, and be able to learn and apply. And what's so fun about it is like they're just so excited about it. Like they're excited to have kids there that want to be engaged in law enforcement. And that speaks to the character of the people that we have in Sumner County. And it's so exciting, you know, to see Toby, to see Sheriff Craddock, and them just walk through the Innovation Center and get excited about what we're going to be able to do for kids now and in the future. It's also been a wild journey. Like I feel like, you know, if you know me, waiting is not exactly a strong suit of mine. And we meet Miss Brown, Amanda, Frankie, me, Chase Moore, and Kim Norfleet, our grant supervisor. We meet every Tuesday morning. We are getting assistance from the strategic marketing consulting company. We're also getting help from a Silicon Valley consulting group to help us put together, because y'all, we're doing something that's not done anywhere else in the country. I would tell you that there's a huge confluence among industry and education to say, how do we begin to look at things that are problems or needs, and then say, what's the education that we need? What's the subject matter expertise that we need? You know, so it goes beyond like algebra or English or whatever. It's like, what do we need to be able to do this? Who are the mentors we need to put in place? Who are the support staff that we need to put in place to help kids work through a real world solution? I can't quite tell you the name of the company yet, but I want to tell you a really exciting, we've reached a handshake agreement with our first entrepreneurial company. It's a healthcare venture capital company. They fund 6 projects in the fall and 6 projects in the spring. They did a $30 million venture capital run first.
They're about to start a $50 million venture capital run. They do a 12-week mentorship program with the new seed capital groups that they're funding. They bring them in for a week and a half to do a boot camp, and then they have an 11-week after that of mentorship. And they're working on, Frankie, help me, they're working on telling your story, how to talk to stakeholders, how to talk to funders, how to do all, did I miss anything, Frankie? Professional skills, all the things that we've been talking about in Sumner already of teaching our kids. But what they're wanting to do is use our space at the Innovation Center to train the entrepreneurs, the 6 companies, and they're going to let our kids jump in on a healthcare startup to be a part of that boot camp. So imagine you're 16, 17 years old, and you're going to be able to be a part of a healthcare boot camp. Or not a healthcare boot, it is a boot camp, but an entrepreneurial boot camp for a healthcare startup. One of the products, I can't wait to show you, but I want to sign the agreement before I show you. One of the products is a robotic dog that's AI generated for Alzheimer's patients. And you have a piece of wearable technology that monitors your heart rate and everything else, and it's tracking to see when you escalate or de-escalate to provide better care for that individual, but to also collect that data across Alzheimer's patients to begin to look at geriatric care. They're in the business of trying to identify things like, can we build an MRI, a machine that does the same thing as an MRI but does it at a much lower price point, so we bring down the cost of healthcare and make healthcare more accessible. It's not just capital for the sake of capital, it's trying to do good in the community, and that's one small piece. Another thing that I'm excited, I don't want to steal the thunder, so Amanda, glare at me if I go too far, or throw something at me. We had students that approached us with a presentation, and I don't want to steal their thunder because I want them to tell you all the story. But it's so exciting. We're gonna have 2 students. We weren't able because we're learning as we go, and there are constraints on high school schedules. What our goal was to hit 2 students from each high school. I don't think we're going to be able to get 2 from each high school because we're 20, 30 deep at some schools and they just can't make the scheduling work. They'll be able to do it next year. We're going to try to find a way to get students from that school involved in the process, but basically we'll have student representation from each school, and they're going to get a dual enrollment credit in Lean Six Sigma, a dual enrollment credit in The Advantage by Patrick Lencioni, Working Genius by Patrick Lencioni, and they are going to work on a real world project that will be beneficial to the students in Sumner County community. I would love to tell you what it is, but I want them to tell you because they actually came and pitched us on it and got feedback from my cabinet and then spoke to all the principals. And they developed, I'm going too deep, I don't want to steal their thunder, but man, it hasn't threatened me yet. So, but it's just so exciting to see it. And that's what we're really wanting is, data will tell you 65% of students are checked out. They check the boxes, but they're not engaged in their high school experience. That's nationwide, that's very much the case here. So if you look at it, I had the opportunity to speak at the state board a few weeks ago. We are killing it on every measurable category. Scholarship dollars, graduation rate, and graduation rate, we're above 97%. You really can't go much higher because of the way that number is calculated. But the question is going to be, I think, increasingly, how do we look under the hood to see what's there? Like, what does it mean for a child to be ready for their first and future career? What are the metrics that tell us that we're preparing kids for 5 years after they're graduating? To me, those are the numbers. I don't mean I 100% believe in accountability. I will also tell you, I've never had anybody ask me about a lot about EOC scores in high school. They're concerned about ACT scores, they're concerned about scholarships, they're concerned about industry credentials, opportunities, work-based learning, internships, all the things that I think we do better than anyone. I think it's why we're drawing so much national attention and support. But those are the places where we've got to hang our hat and figure out that piece, and that's going to include doing some things that are radically different in education. But I think that there's, for the first time in my lifetime, we're seeing that come together to be able to put some stuff together that's truly transformational for kids. It's going to light a fire under kids. And I will say one of the things that our team has really done is to say we're going to intentionally gear this where we're including kids they're in that 65% in a variety of ways to try to find ways to connect them and light that fire. Because once we light that fire in a kid, they just take off. I'll give you, to jump back to Officer Soares, Ken Widener and I were sitting outside the morning after Officer Soares passed away, and a car pulled up, and a boy got out and went in, and his mom stopped the car and got out and came and told us, I just want y'all to know that this is, my son's not one that you would pick up on. He doesn't play sports, he's not in the band. Officer Soares meant the world to him. He had such a profound influence. That personal relationship and mentorship is huge. And we've got so many people in our community that are lined up to want to help. So, it's going to be, we will have some stable baseline dual enrollment classes that will expand opportunities for kids across the county, because the price point for a university partner is to have 10 kids in a class, 10 to 12 kids that the class can't make and they can't teach it. So a lot of times you get to school and you got 4 kids that need a calculus class or something like that. If we can pull that at the Innovation Center, we're not taking away from what's at the school, we're expanding the opportunity for everybody. We'll have our aviation academy in the spring, we'll have criminal justice, we'll have leadership, we will continue to add. The fall we'll have a whole lot more offerings. We're really close to having that spelled out. So next month I'll probably be able to give you a little bit bigger, deeper picture. Do y'all have any questions or things that you would like for us to share? I don't want to just talk. I know we're late in the night. I know Mr. Lancaster's got to go. Do you have any questions or things you'd like for us to share?
Ms. Barnes?
Yeah, just as you were talking, and I was actually thinking about the Innovation Center today. For those of us that took the tour before we signed the lease, it was so exciting to see. But one thing I'd be interested in is once you get more stability, maybe in the spring, I'd like to do another tour with students in there and experience what those programs are and see that excitement. That's just a request for me.
Absolutely.
Ms. Brittany?
I will second that and just say, as you do build outs, as we see classroom changes in the building, I'd love to see some pictures just at some point. But I know we all had the opportunity to tour, but as things change, that would be great to see. Another tour would be great to see. I would love to get those students in here to tell us what they're going to do, that kind of stuff.
I just wanted to add one thing, that the tenet through the Innovation Center is going to be professional skills and civic engagement. So whatever class you take there, you are going to experience those two things always. That's the thread that's going to weave it all together.
Yeah, and I think the thing is, it's interesting. We've been a part of a lot of AI conversations lately. And I don't know if you saw, OpenAI just released Sora, which is crazy. You can type a prompt, it makes a video. I've spent so much time making videos that are silly. I'm not proud of that necessarily, but I mean, think about this. They had to expand by 10. Amanda, how much electricity is it? Did I tell you?
You said 10,000 megawatts.
Yeah.
I quote, that's a lot. So I'd like to know. That's really.
I'm gonna find it. So it
That's
uses
that's not 4 nuclear reactors.
it uses a massive amount of electricity. But the world is going to change so rapidly with AI in terms of you can't be bought into a tool. One of the things that we've talked about as kids are coming in is how do we ask the right questions to get the right tool, to get the right support, to make sure it's safe, but then to also help kids learn these tools are going to change names constantly. These tools are going to evolve, and something that's here right now may not be here in a year. So how do you ask questions? What's a responsible, a humane, and an ethical use of AI? When is it appropriate to use AI? When is it not appropriate to use AI? And how do we use it to make life better? And I think we're going to be blown away at what our kids come up with. I think they're really going to, when we loose them to be able to create and ask real problems and then provide the support for them, I think we're going to be absolutely blown away. And I think, Ms. Barnes, I love that idea. I would say I had the opportunity to take Ms. Tucker and a group of realtors around, and it was amazing to me because as we were halfway through, they were so excited, and I was thinking, imagine how AI is going to change real estate, and marketing and things like that. And it's always exciting to see new groups of people come in to be able to see and to think differently And I think that's one of the most exciting parts. You know, obviously we've got to, and so I think just to preface what I would advise y'all is we want some things that are stable and consistent, like the dual enrollment options. Also understanding that, you know, there's going to be a whole lot of opportunities here created for our kids. We're working on some funding formulas to bring in some big players to help provide, like I think we will be able to generate a significant amount of revenue to help. You know, we're going to be chasing dollars for a while to try to support our school system. We've got to create some revenue that's not directly connected to property tax. And how do we do that? One of the ways we can do that is by creating public-private partnerships. And I think we are well positioned to be able to do that. I'm really excited about that piece. So I could go on forever, but I know it's late and we're long in the seat.
I would like to say I Googled it and he is right.
Definitely time to leave because I'll screw this up.
10,000 megawatts.
I do want to say that, you know, just as we kind of wrap up tonight's meeting, you know, we're reaching a point where public education is changing from the way it used to be. And I don't mean that based on what political party's in charge. I mean just the way that kids process information today. I remember my 7th grade history class with Bobby Leon Thompson that was right down that hallway. And I remember every test we took, he gave us a piece of paper with the questions that we had to literally write down on a piece of paper exactly the way they were written on that piece of paper, even if he spelled the words incorrectly. And then we had to circle our answer as either being affirmative or negative. And if we misspelled a word, we got marked down. Kids don't learn that way today. I don't think that would fly today. Things are changing, right? And so I shared that story with you because, you know, as a board, it's really exciting to think through all the things that are coming down the pipeline, all the changes that are happening, to know that we've got the opportunity to be a part of that. So I encourage you as you come to these meetings to have an open mind, to ask questions, to think creatively, to think outside the box. I think you're seeing that's what our staff is trying to do. What can we do differently to connect with the kids in our school system to help them grow up to be successful adults in our community, whether that's through a job, whether that's through leadership, whatever that is. How can we prepare them to be the types of people that we want them to be? And with that, part of preparing kids to be the way that we want them to be is to be the example for them that we should be. You know, you all elected me to be chairman. I appreciate that. You know, my boss tells me sometimes I've got a team of about 35, 40 people that I manage, and it's a lot. They're sales reps, so I consider myself a part-time therapist a lot of the time. He often tells me that I'm too nice. You know, as a chairman, my job is to run this meeting. And I want to give each of you the opportunity to speak, to share your thoughts, to share your ideas, to share your beliefs. There are going to be things that we disagree on. It seems like we've got a lot of people on the board that takes things personally. Got to learn to let that go. I remember being told after my very first board meeting a long time ago by Danny Hell, who used to sit right here. He said, "Look, Andy, if there's one thing I can tell you about being on the board, it's this. If your goal is to make everybody happy, you're not going to make anybody happy." I realize that in today's world of influencers, that there's a goal to have that gotcha moment that's captured on video, to get that last bullet point in so that you can look like you're the attack dog. You know, to talk down to somebody because it makes you feel good and it plays good on social media, to get filmed so it can be posted on Facebook of you up there saying whatever you want to say. That's your goal. I don't know why you're on the board, because my goal is to help the kids in this community and do the best that I can to help our school system set a legacy so that we have effective, great quality leaders in this county in years to come. Moving forward, we won't be disrespectful to each other anymore. I'm going to demand respect to each other. I'm going to demand that you speak to each other politely and professionally, that we treat each other with the respect that we deserve as elected officials. If you can't do that, I have no problem taking a break. I have no problem adjourning a meeting. I have no problem with adjourning a meeting altogether and bringing us back on a Thursday night when we've all had a chance to settle down and take a breath. We owe it to the citizens of this community to have debate with each other that's respectful. And if you can't do that, then we'll just stop the meeting until we can take a breath and treat each other with respect. We owe that to the people of this county. We owe it to the kids to be the example for them. Can I ask you, as you walk out of here tonight and you think about next week, I know we've got some items on the agenda. We've got the calendar to discuss and vote on. We've got a director's contract to discuss and vote on. We're going to have other items on the agenda in months to come that are going to be controversial. I encourage you to take yourself out of it as a person, to communicate with people across the county, not just those inside of your bubble, and understand that when we sit up here at the board and we make comments that say everybody believes this or everybody believes that, what you're really saying is I only talk to people that tell me that believe the same thing that I believe. We owe it to our community to listen to everyone, to respect their opinions, and then have respectful debate with each other as we come to decisions of the board. So that's what I'm going to challenge you guys to do as we walk out of here tonight, to be better. And if we can't be better, then we'll run meetings in a different way. So with that, we're adjourned. Thank you.